Good evening, everybody. I hope that everything is coming through loud and clear. My name is Trajan. Welcome back to the LTA South. I am joined today by SuperBren, stepping back up to the casting desk and away from the community management post. Thank you very much for joining me, Bren. How are we doing?
I am super excited. I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here today. We can get to still put on a series, and this one is like, we kind of expect that the other upper bracket matchup is going to be like just some insanity, but this the one between VKS, the lower bracket matchup, is VKS and IE is going to be just a different kind of insanity. I have no clue what to expect from either of these teams after last week because I had
Yeah.
so many ideas, so many assumptions about what these teams were going to look like in playoffs, and I think all of them were shattered in the span of two series.
Yeah, it was not necessarily the week we expected, that's for sure. We still ended up with VKS advancing. IE was a bit more of a tricky one to call, but ultimately they looked pretty conclusive. You know, we can look at that series and go, definitely looks at the better team won, and IE have been taking those steady steps forward week on week, and now they have another opponent in front of them to present again an equal step up challenge as VKS. Yes, they were good enough to beat Red after about a game and a half of looking very much not even close to being good enough to beat Red somehow, but they did get their stuff together. They managed to kind of get their feet back under them. We saw some clips, I think, from social media of CL giving them the business in the back room between games, and I think maybe it did need a little bit of a coach wake up to get them into that series.
I think that's one of the big things that VKS has going for them is Coach CL just being able to keep the team's head on. A lot of teams after that first game and most of that second game are going to just fall over dead.
Yeah.
Like even if they manage to get the flip and win game two, like you're not feeling good about that, and you're going to come out and game three just kind of look dead in the water. But they rebounded pretty nicely. I mean, winning game two off of a huge flip it elder and getting a win when you're still down in gold.
Yeah.
There's a bit of relief there, but it's a sign that they're a well coached and somewhat experienced team now. Having gone through these last two splits and had time to gel, that they didn't get too down on themselves. They didn't just give up after what was a really really brutal, like you said, game and a half.
Yes, it was. It does show a resilience. Resilience is an important part of the game. It's not every team. Teams don't just win from early game every single time. You've got to be able to mount a comeback, and VKS absolutely did. Now, we are into the draft here between Isrus Estral and the Cade Stars. We are seeing an instant jungle lock-in for Jose Diodo, and this is a matchup, Brenda, I think you really wanted to highlight. The Desamas Jose Diodo matchup is going to be pretty pivotal today.
Yeah, we've talked about it. We talked about it a little bit before the broadcast started. You guys talked about it um, during the weekly podcast, Gringos Liberados. Make sure to check that. It usually always comes out on Fridays, right before the match week starts. And yeah, this is a huge matchup. The games we've seen where IE has looked their best, it has been Jose Diodo really leading that charge forward, bringing it forward for his team. You'll see him on the Vi this game, which he has looked pretty good on, even when Vi has not looked good with the rest of the league. But Desamas, we have talked about as well as one of the top junglers in the region, and he will be on that Xin Zhao, who's got a lot of early playmaking potential to really get his team ahead and let them take charge of the game from a very early point.
Yeah, I mean, we can see the focus from Cade Stars trying to ban out the solo laners of IE. I think it's a pretty reasonable strategy. The solo laners have certainly been kind of that focal point, like getting in line behind Jose Diodo, but they've still got an Azir locked in for Mirio, a very standard mid pick for him, and the Scion for Summit is very interesting to me. It's not a traditional carry pick. This is not the genre that he tends to find the most success on, but he's taken this blind, and the answer for Bowl is going to be the Ambessa, another carry top laner, but Summit looked very, very good in that matchup against Cloud. If anything, the most impressive kind of step up for the whole roster was Summit absolutely given the hands to Robo, which is not something we maybe would have expected before that match.
Yeah, especially in the first game, he had a lot of help from Jose Diodo, a lot of
Oh
attention
yeah.
paid to that
Oh
top
yeah.
side, really to really stick it to Robo.
Yeah.
But throughout the series, it not to discredit Summit, Summit looked really good. He has had definitely his ups and downs, not just with this roster, but in just recent memory in general. But he held his own last week, and what we were really worried about as like, is this even a playable matchup. And now we are seeing some interesting bans come out for this second phase. Two ADCs already banned away. And interestingly enough, IE are the ones that ban away the Senna, meaning they were definitely not going to pick at this game, because I feel like that's a good pick for Snaker. But they said, hey, if we are not planning on picking it, it's just a good champion in general. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if you think it's going to get taken away, if you're not going to have a chance to use it yourself, they might want to ban it away. They've got a different plan in mind for game number 1, but this is a best of 5 Fearless, everybody, so we will have plenty of chance to see variety from these teams as we get further into today's games. 4 AD carry bans on either side, and you can see the different stylistic kind of focus there. It's actually VKS banning out the Lucian, the Kalista, banning more lane-dominant carries, and it's IE taking away the more utilitist picks. It's a little bit of a role reversal, maybe, where Snaker, we feel like, performs best on those supportive champions, at least up until the Loud matchup, and Morteus has been being more of a carry. He is still going to get the Varus, so he's still got a very solid carry champion to work with.
I think maybe this is less about targeting the pool, where, we're in the first game of Fearless. Later on, you can really narrow down pools by utilizing what has already been picked as their effective extra bans, because you know that those can't get picked up anymore. And more focused on shoring up weaknesses, right? Something that VKS could utilize is a safer lane with more utility that will let them, have more expression across the map and less attention paid to their bot side. Whereas VKS might be saying, hey, if we ban out these lane dominant picks and they can't pick something that can just run us over in lane, we can run them over instead, because we think that their bot lane is maybe a little weak, and that's a pain point that we can target.
Yeah, and as the drafts have been finalized here now, i.e., this is the most no tricks, no cheese, bog standard composition for League of Legends I think I've ever seen. It's got basic engage, it's got decent disengage, it's got backline, frontline, DPS, burst. It has everything in moderation, but it has a little bit of everything. And that to me just says IE really think they're the better team right now. They really think that we are better at League of Legends. We're gonna draft the simplest comp we can think of, and we're just gonna walk into this rift and we're gonna beat you.
It's such a like pro play League of Legends draft. Like, we have a weak side top lane that is going to just scale up into the late game and be this unshakable frontliner. We have a point and click engage. We know we're going to be able to get on top of you. Their bot side is incredibly safe. Rakan can make plays early if he needs to, but really you're relying on Xayah to survive, dive, and just kind of come online in those team fights where you can get a lot of feathers out on the floor and recall those feathers for a bunch of extra damage. It's just this well-rounded, like, this is the bog standard, like you said, pro play League of Legends draft. And on the other side, we have something that looks a little bit different. We have a carry in the top side, which we know that Bull can execute. We've got a bot lane that, while it can scale up, you see that Nico, and that tells me that we want to play maybe a little aggressive early on and really poke out and bully the enemy bot lane and harass. Not necessarily have to look for kills, but to set them behind, make it so that when they should be scaling up and ready to team fight in the mid game, maybe they aren't quite ready to.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the Nico being picked in more combinations, to be honest. It's not just a Kalista pairing, as kind of we'd seen that be brought back into the league by Titan and Curry over the last couple of splits. We're seeing it with Varus now. We're seeing it with other champions. And I think the Nico is just a great fit for the LTA South. I think our supports can make very good aggressive plays. We have a lot of very talented supports in this region, but we are going to get onto the Rift right now, everybody. This is game 1, Isurus Estral versus Vivo Cade Stars. I am at the production wheel today, everybody. As a disclaimer, if there's anything, any volumes that need changed, anything that doesn't sound quite right, let us know in the chat and I will try to get it sorted at the same time as casting this series. So with that being said, as well, just as a note, RMC, if you haven't run an ad just yet, you might want to pop a quick one in there just to get rid of the pre-rolls before anything interesting happens, as this level 1 does seem to be fairly standard. It's evenly spread across the map, couple of pokes back and forth, but no crazy invades or some such.
Yeah, well, everyone's just kind of saying, we're just going to hang out. We're just going to be super cool. They're kind of checking each other, just the standard spread across the map. And I don't think either team actually wants to commit to a bunch of early fights. VKS, yes, they have the early skirmishing power with, a Nico in the bot lane and the Xin Zhao in the jungle. But they're going to look for picks early on, and neither team, I don't think, is going to fight until we've kind of established what the game state looks like, and we know what we really want to fight for.
Yes, so as the lanes start to crash together, we can see Morteus and Trimby trying to take up an aggressive position right here. This has been an interesting bot lane for us to track throughout the playoffs. They did have some trouble getting in sync with each other, trying to find their footing in the 2 versus 2 earlier on in the split, but they've been improving fairly steadily, and they are now looking like they're able to take on better and better opponents. They made quick work of Root and Redbird against Loud, not something we maybe would have expected, and against Snaker and Ackerman, possibly even the worst 2v2 on balance that we've seen throughout this entire split. We would expect them to maybe do pretty well here. That, of course, depends on how Snaker and Ackerman come into the series themselves, having had a very good experience, or versus Loud, I should say. Morteus and Trimby taking out Brunsey and Frosty in the last matchup. But this bot lane, neither of them have looked that impressive before we got to the playoffs, but they're both starting to ramp up from now.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting just to watch because I have definitely not been super high on the VKS bot lane just because we saw how good Smiley looked last year with Pro Delta. And so it took some convincing for me to believe in Morteus and Trimby, but they have really started to hold their own. They did, like you said, very well in the later games against Frosty and Brunsey, who's, that's Mr. Bot Gap, right? And on the other side, we specifically highlighted multiple times on the broadcast for the day leading up to it in the week. We were like, if Loud is going to, win this series, it feels like Root and Redbird are going to just have to roll over Snaker and Ackerman. And it felt like something that was like very easily doable. And we were like, okay, Snaker can play all these supportive picks. But when we saw him last, Snaker not only was able to show off the supportive picks, picked things like the Senna, but also showed off clearly this guy can play Zeri, because it was an immaculate carry game on that Zeri where he really took over in a way we really weren't expecting.
Yeah, it's been a while since we saw a good Zeri game, I'll be honest, folks, in the LTA South. Only Brunsey's been able to put up results on this champion for a hot minute, but Snaker, to his credit, put on a blinder of a game with it, and now is under pressure here. We're currently pamming back to the mid lane as Morteus and Trimby will get this wave crashed in. They are still using that extensive range that Nico and Varus have to really force this 2v2 as Ackerman heads in. Doesn't quite set up the route for Snaker, and Morteus has just killed him for first blood. Unfortunate judgment call from IE, giving the kill away in the 2v2.
Yeah, it looked like a situation you can pull off very early once you're our level 3 Ezra Khan is just go in, knock an enemy up, hit them with the Gleaming Quill for some healing, and then just immediately dash back to your ADC to shield and just a little poke. You essentially poke by engaging in a weird way. Yeah. And that just didn't come through. It looked like Ackerman thought, okay, maybe I can just get some damage down onto Trimby, as we will get the replay. And as he goes in, you see the root catches, and it does get cleansed, but just enough damage to come through very early on from that Nico that Varus is able to clean up the kill relatively simply with just his E. And that's gotta really hurt, because now the rest of the team has to play a little careful, not give up those feats for free. And yes, you no longer have the bonus gold from First Blood, but you are now losing out on a bit of XP and gold just from the wave already being at your tower when you died.
Yeah, losing all those minions, the XP for Snaker as well is a big setback for them in this bot side. Morteus already 11 CS up. It's about to be 16 or 17, depending on how many minions he gets from this one here. That is such a beautiful start for Cage Stars in the bot side. That's exactly what you want to see. And for IE, maybe they are going to have to lean on those solo lanes again today. Summit and Miryu doing perfectly fine in their own matchups. That was what they prioritized, getting the Sion, getting the Azir, leaving the bot lane for later, as Miryu gets the flash out of Kissy, causes the ultimate. Ackerman as well, going in for good measure, but won't find any more value there. But Miryu keeping Kissy on his toes. We haven't touched on Kissy much so far, as VKS will step over to a likely uncontested Drake with the way the game has been going. But Kissy has been on the rocks a little bit, Bren. The last couple of series from him, yes, they have taken wins, but VKS, this mid laner, he has been suffering a bit more than during the regular split.
Yeah, Kissy definitely I would say generally most people will consider probably the weakest link of VKS. But he had an admirable few games, was able to put up good damage despite it all at the end of that red series. So while he's definitely, a point there where IE might want to try and exploit, because I do feel that Miryu has been performing very, very well for IE, has been one of the stronger mid laners in a region that has kind of experienced a bit of a drought when it comes to talented mid laners. And that's
Yeah.
something, I used to associate very strongly with, CB Lowell, and then obviously turning into the LTA South. I was like, yeah, man, we got people like Tinones, but some of these guys are at the twilight end of their careers. But Kissy, while definitely not the strongest member of VKS, I think has the potential here on the Talia, where you can play as both a damage carry and a utility pick kind of simultaneously. I think he's got the potential here to have a pretty decent game, especially when his bot lane is already ahead, and maybe you can turn more of that Xin Zhao's attention towards the mid lane.
Yeah, it is going to be something you have to keep a close eye on right here. And IE have been harnessing Miryu very, very well recently. You're absolutely right, Bren. He's had a great recent run of form here as a guy who sometimes I've had questions for his judgment on when to engage and whether he's on the same page as Isrus Estral. Once they got on the same page as a team, Miryu has come along for the ride, and they are able to point that very talented player in the right direction, as the Samus is going to get spotted out by this little cheeky control ward in his top side of the map. As we continue, we haven't had any more action since that first misstep in the bot side by IE. Small lead for VKS, first Dragon as well, a modest success so far in the laning phase, but so far they seem to be happy to just use this lane to pressure. Mostly the bot lane is really just where they're focusing, and Asama's going to cover them off as they are pushed up quite hard.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have a second objective here taken for VKS. Perhaps IE are going to want to try and contest. You don't want to give out over too much of this early game objective power. We saw that in, I think, the first week of playoffs. You got to really experience it, where teams were just kind of being a little bit too passive. And when you give over too many of these early objectives, sure, like we have a composition with the Azir in the mid lane that's going to try and scale up and do all this damage later on. But if you've already been run over and you don't have any of that early game, gold, any of those early game fighting stats, it can really start to haunt you, as it doesn't look like they have vision on this river. So this gank is going to go through from Trimby there, essentially ganking his own lane.
Seems to be working though. He's going to get the ultimate, forces Snaker to use his own, but still roots him afterwards, and a flash and cleanse taken too. You mentioned it, Trimby is ganking his own lane, but had about as much success as we could have hoped for there.
Yeah, a really great Pot Blossom, catches both of them in the AoE, forces out the ultimate from Snaker, and then times the root perfectly to hit him on the knockdown as the Emperor's Divide in the mid lane.
Also flashless as well. Jose Leota ready to pick it up. The second time's the charm for IE in mid.
As, like I said, they're going to try and exploit that, weaker link in the mid lane. Kissy caught out in the middle lane, a little bit of a misposition, especially with no flash. And into two champs in that mid jungle duo that can just engage on the drop of a hat, just so quickly, with Emperor's Divide and the cease and desist.
Yeah, great response from IE right there, evening the gold up, getting some power into that top side of the map that seems to be going decidedly better for them. Snaker, despite losing every safety button he had to his disposal, did get away alive at least from bot side, but the CS difference is becoming a little bit insane down there. It's not a great start for the Zyra Khan, traditionally such a strong 2v2, but the Varus-Nico combo has been able to fully bully them out of this lane, and they're really just trying to find a safe place for Snaker to get some waves at the very least, but even that seems like a tall order right now.
Yeah, the farm difference is not flattering for poor Snaker, but 700 gold at this stage of the game, it's a minor component, two minor components really, and it's not unplayable, and he's going to provide team fight value even while behind, just from being able to space out the feathers and get some good CC during the fights. And really, once those safety net buttons come back online, able to absorb a lot of the pressure from a lot of the members of VKS that want to go forward, Bull on the Ambessa and Desamus on the Xin Zhao. So it's not all is lost, but you would like to see maybe some space bought for him so he can just safely farm up, get the XP, and get online, because you pick an AD carry, you pick a marksman to provide team fight damage, and if you are too far behind, that is not.
Yeah, they may have to be leaning on Mirror for at least a little bit here. He has already got the Nash's Tooth done and has had a pretty strong start to this game. And at least there is an Azir. It's not, it's like an Orianna or something that can't do the DPS. We have a replay of this fight, and it's pretty cut and dry. It's just Mirror gets in range, Kissy without the flash. It was almost back up, but not quite. And it's a pretty simple A to B gank there. Slowed up by Isra Sestral, so well identified and well utilized. We can see Summit and Bowl just trading way up here as well, and Summit, despite not being on a carry, has been handling Bowls and Bessa pretty darn well on this Scion. VKS going to take another uncontested Drake. This is going to be a Chemtech, and we'll see what rift they have for us here, as Jose and Ackerman instead making a path to this top side. Potentially they'll look for a dive, but the Ambessa is a pretty slippery champ to try this on.
Yeah, essentially having a dash between each ability makes it very hard to lock down. They are going to commit. The teleport comes out.
Yeah, they've got the Ricano,
there we go.
They've got the Cease and Desist, they've got the Scion, they have all the CC chain in the world, and that will be enough to lock up even the Ambessa. Mirror TPing in to start working on that turret nice and early. Snake are able to pick up mid lane, and overall, it's another well-executed gank for IE. Now, Trimby is going to not, so he is going to succeed on cancelling one of them. He's going to keep Summit around for the time being, which means he cannot help that bot lane just yet.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of plate gold into the hands of Mirror. So a lot of eggs in the, in the bird basket here for Azir. Yeah. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad plan because like we talked about, he's been playing so well for them. And that Azir really can carry team fights. I do like that VKS, they don't really, I don't think they're that bothered by the Ambessa getting dived and the plate gold going over because they got what they wanted, which was another Drake. And now with the Cloud Rift, a very powerful soul that they are halfway on their way to collecting.
Yeah, I mean, Bowl's job is likely going to be one of distraction in these later fights. Can threaten the backline and waste a lot of time dipping in and out with the mobility this champion offers, but he's not going to be in the position where he's actually expected to assassinate the backline, I fear. At least if he's set beside, that's certainly unlikely to be the case. But we have not seen hide nor hair of Desamis so far in this game, SuperBren. We are 40 minutes in. The plates are about to fall off. I feel like I haven't even seen him on my screen once.
Yeah, and that's why you're seeing towards the bottom of the gold charts, which is not what you want if you are drafting Xin Zhao. He's kind of a proactive, get ahead early and force some fights, gank some lanes kind of jungler. He's got that extra mobility, good CC as well.
Ooh, Trimby.
We are going to see a fight break out here in the river.
Yeah, Summit just stepping straight up to him, and Trimby realizing very quickly that was not going to go well for him, had to pop the flash, so well judged by the VKS support, but it is an unfortunate summoner loss, takes away some of that snap engage capability of the Nico if the flash isn't ready, as the Proto Belt will, or the Rocket Belt I should say, will still be a little while coming in on the buying side.
Yeah, and to get back to our point earlier about Desamis, well, yes, he has not been ganking lanes, and you definitely want to see some more proactive, get your laners ahead kind of play from a champion like Xin Zhao. That's kind of his whole bread and butter, is being able to just once he hits the wind becomes lightning, he's gonna go in, he's gonna get a knockup with the 3 talent strike, and that's that. You're probably gonna...
Okay,
we're committing to this one.
He's been caught, but they've stepped back out of the ultimate beautifully, but they still locked up Jose, and there's a seismic shove knockback. He's gonna fall to Desamis, but in comes Scion, and Varus has been trampled. Bowl into the backline, looking for Snaker, but cannot quite get the job done. Desamis back in. Mirror with a lovely shuffle gets those divers off his back, and IE navigate the play beautifully. Double for Azir, now 6-2 up in kills.
Yeah, it looked like perhaps there was going to be a good play when we saw the Pop Blossom come out. One of the problems with that flash is you cannot quickly reposition that ult anymore, especially since the Rocket Belt has not yet been, or was just finished rather, for that support. And so you'll see it looks really good when the Pop Blossom comes out. It's going to catch quite a few important members, and then everyone just is able to step out and it catches nobody. And that's where the play really turns, because Azir is now just able to free fire into these aggressive members of VKS, and it turns into a lot of gold into Miryu's pocket.
Lovely stuff. The shuffle back with the decimating smash on top of it. Summit pulling a blinder on the Scion as well, curving the ult around the Weaver's wall, slamming into Morteus and removing the main carry for VKS. You know, Talia is not going to be a late game win condition. Bowl is not going to be a late game win condition. Morteus is going to have to be doing a lot of damage to make this pick worth it. On one side, he's gone for the lethality build. He's already going to be a little low on DPS, but you cannot be getting caught by Scion. Otherwise, the whole fight for VKS just falls apart.
Yeah, without, the extra percent health damage that you would get from something like the AP build, it's going to be really difficult for Morteus to deal with the Scion. And you see now 3k gold up is IE. And I talked earlier about, and I'm going to bring up Desamus again, and it's going to cause a fight to happen somewhere on the map.
Yeah. Speak his name, and he will get stuck in.
What ended up happening is essentially he traded.
Well, you've done it. Well, it's not the Samus, but you have still summoned the play, Bren. As Morteus dived on the mid lane, Kissy has come in here, cannot quite tag Ackerman. Same with Trimby. The fancy footwork on the Rakan slips away from the crowd control.
Yeah, Morteus unfortunately just caught up in a really well executed dive. IE is playing this early to mid game transition really, really well. They gave up, and I cautioned them on giving up too many of those neutral objectives early on. You can lose a lot of power later. You're forced to fight for certain objectives you otherwise could have ignored. But when you use that time to get ahead in your lanes and get power onto the important members of your team, it's a little less painful. It's a little less, it stings a little bit less, as now you are 4k gold up, but it looks like a third dragon going into the hand of VKS, because IE not in a position to do anything about it. And now we have to fight for the next dragon at some point.
Oh, I would hope so, Bren. Given that IE, admittedly for the first couple, they were pretty even in gold, maybe even slightly behind. They didn't want to overstep their mark, but they are now 4k ahead and still graciously relinquished the soul point over to VKS with a Cloud Soul potentially on the Rift right here. Miryu instead is going to pick up his second solo turret gold of the game. Meanwhile, the Herald's been picked up by Jose. So IE, I'm assuming now, are going to take full control of the map from this point, and VKS will theoretically not even be allowed to go near the last dragon, I suppose is the plan.
Yeah, now with the Herald, you're obviously going to take down the mid tower, and you should get another charge out of this just because of the wave state. You're going to be able to maybe even force a fight if they over-aggress, but nope, just going to take half that tower's health and back away. It's the correct play here from IE. They're not going to overextend, or maybe I spoke too soon, because now they're stuck in the red pit.
Well, they've walked away with the buff, so it was a little tight, it was a little cheeky in there, but they have gotten away with it, and they're going to walk away with a 5.5k gold lead. Isserus Estral, representing the LLA in this LTA South merger, has managed to resurge from the such low lows at the start of this split, Bren, after winning Split 1, at least for the LTA South side of the conference play, and then going to almost the bottom of the table at the start of Split 2, now rocketing back again, taking out Loud, one of our most decorated teams of all time, and now VKS is being decidedly outclassed in this first game. We're approaching the 20-minute mark, and it's looking like a go next angle, honestly it is. I'm struggling to see what the path for VKS back in is.
It's definitely difficult to see. I always try to provide the copium take. I think I was the guy in the first game that was like, "Guy, now I know they're down like 12k, but I've seen Loud come back from worse, guys.
Yeah,
it's real."
Important to offer the copium take in this region. Certainly, we are not above a little bit of throwing now and again. We would never claim to be.
And the thing is, IE, you talked about this rocketing up. It's because they're very much a roller coaster. They're slow descent to the top of the first hill at the the domestic side of the first split, and then this plummeting down into the valley of despair. And they are now riding that momentum back up. But that it can be a deceptive thing. The copium take is, you guys ever heard of this roller coaster? It's in Ohio in the United States, called Top Thrill Dragster.
What a kickin' rad name. That is so sick.
It's the concept of the roller coaster. It is one singular, gigantic, 300-foot tall vertical hill, just 90 degrees straight up and back down. And it launches so fast just to go straight up with no mechanical assistance after like the initial burst of speed.
Trimby's been knocked up himself and is going to get taken out before he can even get the pot blossom off. Summer over the wall with a lovely angle catches the VKS support. No way in to contest the Atakan, and IE again just better prepared, and they continue to click up higher and higher. We'll see if there's another plummet waiting for them at some point, but it seems they can't do any wrong right now.
They are accelerating down the track, but what happens sometimes, very rarely, is that the car does not go fast enough to reach the top of the hill, and then it goes back down backwards. And so we are currently accelerating up the hill, and VKS have to try and slow them down somewhere, because this is just kind of a masterclass from IE. When they are able to actually force these team fights, it is not particularly close.
No, when they can pick their own battles, when they can choose the moment to engage, and with a comp with Vi, with Rakan, with Sion, you've got multiple, even with Azir, you've got so many options as to when you want to pick your battles and how you want to organize them. That's what the benefit of such a well-rounded composition gives you. You know, maybe it doesn't necessarily have a single lane that is particularly dominant, it doesn't have one massive counter pick that smashes one side of the map, but it's just so consistent, it's so versatile, and IE have played to their strengths so well. They are just showing up with a "we are the better team than you" looking ass comp, and they are looking like the better team today. They seem to have bet on the right horse.
Yeah, if you're going to, you said it very early on in the draft, like, as we're gonna get a pause. As I think I saw abandoned news, which I'm assuming there's maybe a connection issue, but I don't want to speak too much on that when I do not know for sure.
Unfortunate. Even on LAN, somehow the spirit of Renska lives within us. We will see how that's going to resolve itself, but it is going to give VKS a little time to sit with their thoughts and go, what do we do about this? What do you take on CL, I guess, to sit and get the belt out and, you know, get the chunklers out?
Yeah,
because I think it's going to need some discipline going on here. This is not a good game one from VKS.
I think RMC talked about, like, just go out, get a chancla. They're not expensive. You can get one.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to interact with the team, you know, during the pause. It's not like a free timeout or anything.
No.
But, you know, maybe he can perform the art that all Latin American, you know, Hispanic grandmothers and mothers are capable of, and just snipe them with the chancla from a distance.
Yeah, it's
and
gonna
they'll
come
get
from
their
off
act together.
screen, and it's gonna bounce off, like it's gonna bounce off Kissy's forehead, and he's gonna go, "Whoa, hang on, what am I doing? Okay, hang on a moment." And maybe if that has to happen in the green room before game 2, so be it. But VKS have become they're kind of the opposite of game 1 Andes at this point. They are really suffering in these first games. It was the same against Red. They looked completely lost, very cold, you know, as it were, off the starting block, and it took them a game and a half to get rolling. We'll see if they maybe want to take the same choice into game 2 if it does go this way. If Viscera Estral are able to clean up this game as they should, we'll see if it's the scaling action that comes to them again. It was, you know, the smolder comps that came in clutch for VKS against Red, and CL's got to be thinking about that in the back room as to how to turn things around, because IE, they have managed to stop that first streak, so thank goodness, Bren, they did not just give away the entire soul for absolute
not give
zero.
away a 4th straight Drake.
Yeah.
I mean, the big thing for IE is you've picked a draft that's going to be strong late. You know, your ADC isn't the most insane hyper carry in the Xayah, but is still serviceable and fine late. And obviously, you know the power of a late game Azir with all his items online in those team fights. And as a tank, Sion just incredibly difficult to deal with when it gets late enough, and he's able to stack up that soul furnace as high as he has. So when you have that style of late game draft, and then you don't give up any silly plays early. We gave up one silly play in the bot side.
Did
but after that, no more silly plays.
Yeah.
And just a well-managed, steady stream of income into a winning mid game. It's going to be really, really hard to touch them in the late game. It is going to take, to go back to the roller coaster analogy, there's no outside force that's going to come in and stop the top thrill dragster right now. It needs to
Yeah.
just fall back to earth on its own.
Yeah, we have to just let this happen, okay? Like, it's there's not really much to be done at this stage. VKS will maybe see what they can. They've got decent pick tools of their own. They've got Nico, Varus, Talia. These are all solid champions at catching an overstep from Mishra's Estral, but they are going very by the book right now, cleaning out the vision, not overstepping their mark, getting the waves nice and split with the 1-3-1 that they have right here, and not presenting an opportunity for a punish from Cade Stars. As a reminder, everyone, this is the match for elimination at 4th place. The loser today. The top will be into that top 3 to face the loser of Pain versus Furia, which we'll see on the channel tomorrow. As in comes an ultimate from Jose. DeSamus doesn't know where to look. The tower's fallen. Trimby is in there and does catch one, but Snaker ult keeps him alive. Summit's already arrived. Did a Miryu seeing if there's any work needing to be done right here. Ball on the front line, just having a little check to see if he can find anything, but there's no value to be had. And i.e., it's a kill and a turret for them.
That's a really great catch from Jose Diodo. He just saw where everyone was positioned, figured out the timings, and made a decision just to, hey, I'm just going to go after them. They have overstepped. This is a free engage here.
Okay, DeSamus
And
is out of there. Apologies.
yeah, okay, nothing
Didn't
more
like
to
the look of that one. Fair enough.
And yeah, just a great catch from Jose Diodo to go forward, gets them a kill, gets them a tower, more importantly, especially opening up this mid lane while Baron is now on the map and you want access to these dragons to deny the soul. It's going to make it very, very difficult for VKS to play out any of these neutral objectives going later into the game. And man, I'm doubling down on, I just don't think VKS have they don't have the sauce to stop the speeding bullet that is IE. They need IE to maybe trip and throw up on themselves a little bit, and IE have no intention of doing that.
Yeah, the top thrill dragster or whatever the name was is pretty much rolling at this stage, and we'll have to just try and get out of the way, as Kissy is trying to get out of the way of Summit right now. Does sidestep the Scion, but can't do much else, as Jose has started up the Baron. Now, DeSamus doesn't have flash. He's going to be in the area, but Jose doesn't want to wait for that one. He's right over the wall, and the Crescent Guard keeps the Xin Zhao alive for now, but it's only a delaying tactic. Miryu's in deep, shoves back Trimby, gets caught. There's decent damage onto him. Bol is desperately looking for something, anything to make work in this game, but Miryu slips away. Less than 50 HP, but no worries in the head of Azir. Steps back and IE peel right back onto the Baron.
So much damage. You watch Morteus, who's also incredibly low. That was all just off Sand Soldiers, just slashing through him. And I really liked, honestly, the vision toggle there from the observers, because DeSamus is stepping up like, I gotta get vision on this Baron. I wonder what they gotta be doing the Baron. And then out of nowhere, over the wall, comes Jose Diodo like, I'm not doing the Baron.
Yeah, what do you think I'm doing? We have the wrong idea, sir. As Summit is chasing down Kissy. A solo kill extended through the bot side of mid. Decimating Smash to seal the deal. 3-0-4 Summit. Scion has been impeccable today, as almost every member of IE have. Only 2 deaths across the board in 28 minutes. The one thing they've been giving up, they gave up 3 Grubs, they gave up 3 Drakes, but you would not believe it from how far ahead they are in this game.
Yeah, and looking at it, you know, with the benefit of some nice hindsight goggles, this might, and it feels very much like this was the game plan from the get-go of, we don't need to contest early. We have a draft that should just win later on with Azir. And if we don't do anything dumb, if we don't fight for any objectives or overextend, then we just can win through the mid game. And that's what they did. It feels very much like this was a cut and dry, like the coach came in and said, we're going to play a bog standard by the book draft and play it in a bog standard by the book way. And sometimes you got to remember that the book was written for a reason, right?
Yeah.
It works.
It's very popular. It sold many copies, has this book. It's very, very effective. And IE, now with 2 inhibs completed, they've got 1 more wave to go to. They've got another Drake to pick up if they so please. Of course, we're not even going to get close to the soul for them in this game. 29 minutes in with 1 dragon. They are going to pick it up just for completion's sake, I suppose. And I imagine it's going to be a reset up into topside. And they can maybe just send Scion into one of the other lanes. Maybe they can even 1-3-1 again if they so please. But probably just send it all down the mid lane or down the top lane and end this game before 32 minutes. We've all got places to be.
Yeah, I just looking to, force some things to happen here as they step forward, they take the drag, they take some Raptors, and out comes the Weaver's Wall as VKS, who were the ones that maybe looked like they were aggressing and have the numbers, right? Zaya is not even nearly in the same zip code, and VKS just don't know that. So they have to just crumble backwards and forfeit any semblance of a defensive position to try and defend what is left of their base.
Summit is shepherding in that mid wave. The rest of IE coming through top lane in the jungle with one turret being worked on by the Baron empowered cannon minion. Still 20 seconds on their Baron buff, which will be enough time to get this turret down, I dare say, with another wave coming in. Might not be entirely doable in one go, but the Nexus turrets are now suffering, and IE continuing to drag VKS back. The last ditch effort from the Cade Stars is going to have to come sooner rather than later, or the game is just going to end in front of their eyes.
Yeah, this is the stage of the game where it's going to end no matter what. Someone has to do something. Here it comes.
Trimby looks to punish the Miryu TP, but an instant stasis keeps the Azir alive. Bowl onto the backline, scooped back with an Emperor's Divide, and that is gonna be it. Easy as you like. Isurus Estral slamming VKS out the gate in game number 1. 1-0 in this best of 5 Fearless series. And the LLA are looking real darn good today.
No, they're good. Isurus Estral is going to lose bans in the next game. I guarantee it. I saw 2 people get up and leave the stage before the game was over. And they have lost bans in 2 separate series for doing that.
That's crazy. They just cannot wait. That's, well.
What are we doing?
You don't often see the teams mixed coming up the stairs as well. No one wants to hang around in this or at the scene of the crime after that game. They are going straight back up. And VKS, as tough as that game was, they're obviously not looking super pleased, but this is not the first, rough game 1 that they've had. We do need to give them the credit and wait to see what they can show us in game number 2.
They're just going to have to take some time. We talked about the big thing for VKS that we saw last week out of them was resilience. It's a championship winning quality, right? You're not going to roll over every game. A team has to face some adversity and be able to get through it. And we saw them do it last week. They're going to need to do it again because this first game was just kind of not even just flawless, but kind of effortless from IE. Yes. It never looked like they were in a position where they really need to do some heroics. It wasn't, despite a dominating win, it wasn't really interesting because it just felt like it was so easy for them.
Yeah, it's a great choice of word, effortless. I think that kind of says it all. Like it looked like another day at the office for Isurus Estral. And if we're talking so frequently about the top 2 of LTA South, it's Pain and Furia, and then there's just kind of the rest who they're all struggling to get themselves in order. Loud have fallen off, Red have disappeared, VKS aren't looking right. Isurus Estral might be ready to step up and say, no, there is still a top 3. We're ready to prove that. Now, we haven't seen the play against Furia and Pain for a hot minute, but everyone who's not them seems to be a pretty smooth event so far, So given what we've seen in this game 1, yes, it's just game 1 of this series, but I don't know, Brandon, how confident are we feeling about Isurus Estral just walking away with this one?
I don't have confidence that it's going to be a 3-0. You asked me, are they just going to roll through the rest of the series? Even in game 1 against Loud, where they rolled them over, Loud still took game 2 in this weirdly convincing fashion. Yeah, we're like, we've got a series on our hands. Yeah. So I think IE's going to drop at least 1. But if they continue to play like this, I think they'd give us a series against our top 2 teams. Like you said, that there is a top 3 if they play the way they just played. And so VKS, Coach CL, we talked about the Chankla. He needs to get a bigger one, a really, really big one, and get the whole team in one go because they got to get that together.
Get the 5-hit combo going in that back room for now. Let's go to a break, and we'll be back in a few minutes with the second game of this series. IE coming out strong, and we'll see if VKS has any answers to offer. Welcome back, everybody. We are back for game number 2. The draft has already started. They cannot wait to get stuck in once again, and who can blame them? VKS now on the blue side, Isrus Estral on the red. So, we are getting through these first round of bans. We've seen a lot of bot focus once again, but still some solo lane focus as well. 2 supports banned in rotation 1 by VKS, which is just crazy to me, but they have locked the first pick Rumble.
Yeah, Rumble, a super strong power pick in the top side. And we do see that switch of sides, VKS going to go ahead and pick up the blue side. And, you know, if you're going to use your power pick on your top side, I think Rumble is a really, really good one to go for with that first pick. Just being able to, he doesn't have too many hard losing matchups in the top side. He can generally farm up and be pretty strong. But those team fights, the big equalizers over the top, can really make or break the late game for VKS.
Now, IE, the answer with both of their solo lanes, the Cassante for Summit, so once again, not a straight carry, though certainly something that does have a lot of outplay potential in it, and the Rise for Miryu. So this is looking like it's shaping up to be a pretty beefy front line that they're building, quite a resilient team comp, and again, something that may indicate just another straight up front to back, front line in the front, back line in the back, engage options, disengage options, another standard team comp as they did in game 1 as opposed to focusing on some specific strategy.
Yeah, and the Rise in the mid lane, I feel like we had just, especially in pro play, I feel like Rise has become like a weird, like, pocket pick top laner more than he's a mid laner, but he is, fun fact, a mid laner, and he can really duel depending on what he's up against. The Victor is going to, I think, be a little bit tough to handle early on in the lane. Just has a lot of potential to kind of just hit you through your minion wave, kind of poke you down, and be just generally annoying. I think Victor is just such an annoying laner to play against. And that's a good pick, kind of play as a bit of a hornet there for Kissy. Doesn't have to necessarily roll over the lane, but perhaps just keep Miryu from impacting the map elsewhere.
Yes, and paired up with a misfortune for Morteus right here, one of the players who has found the most success on this champion in the region. We have seen very good performances on MF from IU, from Titan, from Morteus as well. So we'll see what the support pairing is going to be. We're obviously going to have some more bans to be levied that way in the second rotation, as Jose has taken the Wukong. So another good bridging, enabling jungler can be the engage that this team might need. And we're banning Lee Sin at this point. So Interesting stuff. We've only seen Jose pick the Lee Sin so far this split. DeSamus has played it in the distant past, but is it bannable? I guess IE thinks so.
I don't know if IE are banning that just because they don't want to play against the Lee Sin. I think they're banning it so VKS can't pick it and then prevent IE from playing it in game 3.
Yeah, they always need their final
legitimately.
game
I think they're like
off,
saving the pick.
Yeah, it's just don't take it. You'll take it and you'll ruin it. We're gonna win this game anyway, so don't take our Lee Sin at the same time. We want to show you how it's done. The Viego I understand a lot more, as a pick that DeSamus has found a lot of success on, and VKS abandoning out that bot side. It's once again Snaker and Ackerman relegated to the second rotation. The Senna again taken away from Snaker, so no easy Utilitas option right there. Last time the Ezreal was taken away at some stage too. The Kallista's already gone, but there are still things like the Zeri that we haven't seen yet. Ashe is going to be the takeaway for VKS, so let's see what the answer is going to be for IE. Let's see what Snaker's going to get his hands on.
And I did get it wrong. They must have left their clients like open or waited for the victory screen to pop up, so I did not get in trouble. But I was like, I saw 2 members get up and the other 3 still sitting at the desk, and I was like, no, they didn't do it again, right?
Yeah, not this time.
And it is Ezreal that you called out earlier, having been banned by them in the last draft. Ezreal now picked up for Snaker. Has a lot of very good skirmish potential. Very difficult to pin down. So no matter who the support and jungler are for VKS, they're not going to be able to really lock down Snaker, which should, for someone that's considered the weak laner, the weak link, but it's going to help keep him alive and keep getting value in team fights. And again, I think that's all that Snaker needs to do for his team as part of their game plan is just continue to persistently be a threat. He doesn't have to be the carry.
Yeah, he just needs to do a job, pump out a bit of DPS, stay out of range of Kissy, maybe ult onto Morteus, get a bit of threat down onto Bowl. Just there's once again not going to be the primary carry of this game, as VKS have locked in their frontline and CC options in the second rotation. Skarner for DeSamus, Rel for Trimby, so they have got good lockdown now as well. Good ways to dive deep into that backline, get a CC chain going, as Ackerman is going to take the standard Rel answer with the Alistair.
Yep, just kind of boot Rel out of there every time she goes in. Another good Rel answer is actually the Milio, but obviously does not fit this composition whatsoever. So the correct play is made, picking up the Alistar, will be able to provide a lot of value. With multiple CCs, he can cleanse, get really tanky, and get in there and disrupt, especially the Misfortune ult. When you see a Misfortune, I think a lot of people, if they don't watch a lot of pro play, go, oh, you just pick the Braum into the Misfortune. And what does the Misfortune do? You just block the whole ult. But you're generally just going to get picked apart by the other members of the team if you try and sit in that ult. It's better to just CC the Misfortune to cancel it, which with the headbutt, Alistar can do from a relatively long range and just get on top of the Misfortune.
Yeah, there's decent options there for sure, and as if Snaker and Ackerman can avoid the little whoopsie of last game, they came out of lane very, very comfortably and were doing their job well later on. It was that top side that really got rolling for Isra Estral, and again, they have the Wukong, so going to be waiting till level 6 likely before we see too much out of them, but solo lanes that certainly can try and exert their influence as we get through into this game number 2. So, VKS, let's see what you can show us. Give us some hope, give us some reason to believe that you're not going to get swept aside by the LLA's representative as we get onto the Rift for game number 2.
Yeah, I would like to see a nice competitive one this game. The VKS fan base loud and in person. I love this arena. First of all, I think the stage design is really cool.
Yeah.
Just is that like window in the middle, just a super awesome stage design. And obviously, the Brazilian and Latin American fans are some of the most intense, wild, crazy fans in the world, no matter what the sport. And I think it just makes for such a cool, awesome atmosphere down there.
Yeah, it is always the place to be, the Sao Paulo Arena. Many good times have been had and many more will be as well as we get onto the Rift here. Game number 2, Isra Estral leading the series 1-0 on the Spirit Blossom Rift here. As we will see if their level 1 has anything to say about it. Obviously, they've got an MF Rel lane, which is pretty solid. The Alistar should hopefully be able to keep the Rel at bay, but Snaker unlikely to be taking advantage there. Miryu and Kissy guess he with the range advantage, but Miryu, once he gets those first bit of tanky items locked up, he can deal with that pretty well. And then Summit's job, I guess, is just not to get cooked by Bowl, because the Rumble traditionally is supposed to be able to win this one out. He had such a good game one on the tank in the Scion, so we'll see if he can continue bucking the trends, and we'll make Bowl work for it on the Rumble as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up. The Rumble is traditionally viewed as a great pick into the Cassante. He kind of just does make his life hard in lane and then will generally provide more value in the team fight. And so picking the Cassante could be seen as like a bit odd here, but I think especially Summit after seeing the last game is less concerned about his lane opponent and what is going on, more trying to play for the team's strategy overall. As we will see some aggression level 1. This could turn into something, Trajan.
VKS have gone deep in for these wards and are looking to stand their ground and contest something or other, but Miryu, of course, the Rise level 1 doesn't hit particularly hard. He's only just got damage and nothing else to offer. Summit, too, needs to stack up the Intofo strikes before there's utility there. And maybe VKS just standing and saying, we know your champions do nothing at level 1. We're going to step in, we're going to contest your space, and we're going to try and throw you off balance at that first level, which, I mean, they got some vision down. They didn't get any of the chickens, so who's to say what the value of that was? Maybe it will become apparent in the near future.
I think the value was we got to see Jose Diego dancing on the monkey.
Yep, did give us a chance to stare at it on the camera. That's true. And but the trading in mid lane has gone even, and Miryu still got to level 2 first, so he's had to use a lot of mana to do that, it must be said. But the Rise is not going to be sitting on low mana for long. He's going to be stacking up resources as a priority.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty expeditious. After the first and second back, it's going to be plenty of the mana for Miryu, so that's not really going to be an issue. Yeah, it does ultimately just kind of amount to both teams have now wasted their time just dealing with this. You get vision, so you get to know approximately when Wukong is done with his, initial camp clears, but you kind of know that anyways. Wukong is a pretty straightforward clear. It did ultimately, looks like it's turned into a nice advantage because of that low mana for Kissy here in the lane. We're going to see already a back coming out from Miryu.
Yeah, Kissy trying to get that wave crashed in. Obviously, the TP coming out very slowly at that first rank, but he will be able to pick up the vast majority of this wave. So, Miryu's still going to walk away with a CS advantage out of this early set, but a TP down, it must be said. Ackerman going in with the knock up at level 3. Morteus has the Mystic Shot blocked by a helpful minion, and the bot lane continues to be relatively calm, but once again, the CS lead opening up wide in favor of Morteus and Trimby, even just as far as level 3.
Yeah, and that's, I think, to be more expected this lane than it was even last game. You have a lot of just power to punish someone stepping up to the wave as Misfortune. The Q just does so much damage if it hits a minion, kills it, and gets that crit damage. Early on, that chunks for like a quarter of your health, and so you have to be very, very careful. And obviously, you are more worried about the early game damage from the Misfortune and the Rel than you are from the Ezreal, and really not much damage offered by our Minotaur friend in the bot lane. So it makes sense that we're going to see some CS forfeited. It's definitely very in line with Snaker and Ackerman's style of lane, but in the last game we saw very much the same thing, and they played the rest of the lane safely besides their one little hiccup, and it worked out later on. So we're gonna have to see VKS not just take that advantage, but leverage it into something more.
Yes, we have seen some very satisfactory, very exceptional early games from VKS as they've kind of been developing in this split. We've also seen some pretty rough ones as now Ackerman with a double knockup on Morteus is getting cooked right now. Snaker and Ackerman just forcing the issue. One more auto. First blood for the Ezreal. What a turnaround from game 1. That is not what I expected to see, Brad.
Yeah, you generally don't expect a lot of early game power from Ezreal, especially with like an engaged tank. If you saw like an Ezreal Karma, those tend to be like high pressure, like poke down lane. But this is just really, a bit of a misposition on Morteus and Trimby's part, but really just well played from Ackerman throughout that skirmish there. Just really well timed CC and able to punish just a small misstep and make it into a kill.
Yeah, I mean, these have been finding those good knockup combos over and over again, and not having to wait for Trimby to make an aggressive play to hold headbutt for the counter. None of this nonsense. He's going for the kills as Kissy drops low as well. Miryu with a tight little rise combo going to crash in another wave. No level 6 for the victor just yet. Desamas around the corner, doesn't have an ult either. Miryu has his flash. Jose, you can see just on the barest right side of your screens, is in the area. So this Rise is going to be able to confidently get this wave crashed in. And Kissy is already without his TP as well.
Yeah, that's going to be very, very difficult as you see the Flux get consumed there. All of that damage. It is actually Morteus and Trimby roaming up into the mid lane to collect that wave. A really smart decision there. You don't have a super huge threat of your tower getting shredded in the bot side. And this way that gold and experience is not going to waste. So some smart macro decision making from VKS, and we'll assume to see their lane reset. And now they do not know about the Scorpion in the jungle here, so they gotta be a little careful. Here comes the engage.
Here it comes through. Lovely flash engage by Trimby. He's going to lock Ackerman up. He's got no unbreakable will. He doesn't have the flash either. Headbutt back on Trimby. Desamas, can he actually catch this cow? There gets another slow, but Jose around the corner. And now Trimby's the one left in the lurch. He flashed to engage. No way out this time as Snaker picks up a second kill.
That's looking really good for the IE bot lane. They didn't have vision, but were able to just weather that engage and get the counter gank out from their jungler, Jose Dieto, on the... And we saw Jose Dieto play Wukong in the last game, or in the last series rather, against Loud, and it's the one game where he didn't look spectacular in the jungle, as some real fighting in the top side.
He's going all out, but Bola sidestepping these Qs very well. Has been tagged by one just there. Summit looking to flash in to get the last bit of damage down. The equalizer is called, and the flame splitter as well. Bol trying to turn this fight around. Has kept himself alive. Ackerman and Trimby arriving in the top lane. Quick thumbs up from the Isurus Estral support, and they'll simply clean the waves out. But tight fight in that top side. No one really coming out on top.
Yeah, it was particularly close. I'm not allowed to talk about junglers.
It is illegal.
Only if I can talk about anyone else. If I talk about the junglers, things happen.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try it again. The one game where Jose Dieto didn't look stellar last week was on Wukong. But I want to say that was less because his Wukong isn't up to snuff or he looked particularly bad on the champ. His lanes just got behind early and there wasn't much he could do in terms of those ganks. And so to see him get that counter gank off very early is, a good sign for the team. No neutral objectives have been taken so far. No dragons, no void grubs. There's been a lot more in-lane skirmishing. And we might see a contested void grubs here. Just the presence of Jose Dieto will cause VKS to back off after losing or taking that first grub.
Yeah, certainly not stuck with losing lanes in this game. Isurus Estral are chilling across the map right now, and Jose is going to turn this into 2 of those 3 void grubs. I feel like Miryu has been under Kissy's tower for the entirety of this game so far, Brent, and nobody has been able to do a lick about it. He has been completely uncontested right now, despite the range disadvantage, just aggressively stepping up into the face of Kissy. Here he goes again. He's going to have to step back off the gravity field, but the trading is just constant, and given he has the catalyst, has the tier, has the refillable potion, he can trade his HP every single time.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job utilizing that pressure, that super intense wave clear that Rise provides early on in the game, where you stack the Flux on the entire minion wave and just watches you shred it in 2 abilities. So it's well utilized using the strengths of his champion. Now heading up to the top side, going to swap out a bit and buy time for the rest of his team to kind of position across the map. As you see, Ezreal on the map, you can see, is now taking up the mantle of that mid lane.
And VKS are going to need to try and find a way out of this sticky situation. Quick, smart. 1.5k down at 10 minutes. Very much, far from ideal for them. And Desamas may be looking for an angle on top side, but Ackerman is already here. There's a lockup onto Bola, flash into range, and there comes the combo. Ezreal ult goes wide, but Miryu should be able to sew this kill up before it gets too hairy. One last Q, a flash, and there it is. Rise ult to get to safety. Can't be saved. as he's slammed into the wall and will not be allowed to leave. Summit's TP'd in and gets pulled back by Skarner, but it's not going to be near the tower. Going to try and walk his way out. Ackerman has a headbutt, I imagine, if it's needed. Kissy going to step forward doggedly as well. Trimby around the corner. Another stun, a Pathmaker. Catches him on the gravity field, but he makes it back to the safety of the turret.
Yeah, a bit of a messy fight, but ultimately probably worth it for IE. Getting that third kill, trading 1-for-1, secures them the feat of warfare early on here. And they are on their way with both 2 grubs and a dragon now to securing the feat of objectives. And so it's not the cleanest play. It's not the necessarily safe one, but it works out in the end. We saw a lot of resources get blown up there as well. Multiple flashes, multiple teleports.
They're sending it one last Q. Snaker cannot predict the movement. Morteus has to step away, and Jose commits his ult, but does not find anything from it.
Yeah, and so now everyone we're probably going to see a bit of a lull state, right? We see flashes out across 3 different members of VKS, multiple ults down. As you'll see, as this fight starts, the early rotation from Ackerman, he gets there first, flashes to get the knock-up. If that ultimate from Ezreal had hit, it would have been fantastic, and this probably would have been a much better play overall. But able to get trade 1 back, VKS get the CC down, and we're gonna again. I think we're with all the resources that both teams have expended, we're both going to just kind of calm down. I think we're gonna pump the brakes a little bit.
Yes, not much pressure for IE. 2,000 gold in the lead. They haven't even got the Rod of Ages finished for Miryu yet. You want to try and get that scaling item stacked up as soon as possible. And it is going to be a fearsome mid and late game for them. VKS trying to find an answer, but so far they have been the ones on the reaction. Not able to find proactive plays of their own. These are not successful ones, and you can see on the gold graph, everybody is behind their opponents. Desamas is at least more or less on parity with Jose Diodo, but that is the one sort of quote-unquote success of this early game, is not falling behind Jose. The rest of it is just gradually spiraling out of control.
Yeah, Jose Diodo, despite picking up those jungle camps, those neutral objectives, and putting his team in, has not claimed any of the kills for himself, and so is not wildly ahead of his opponent. Well, I think it's single-digit gold at the moment.
Yeah, 1 solitary gold coin ahead until another camp is taken. As Ackerman, once again, waiting to see if there's aggression coming towards Miryu, but VKS have the vision to spot Jose Diodo as well coming around the corner, and will not opt into this one. They've seen how that goes.
Yeah, just a slight lead across the board for IE here, who's making very good use of it. Smartly just taking the time to pressure the waves where they can, and I don't think their comp necessarily wants to get into a huge 5v5 brawl, and so keeping VKS spread out where they cannot stack up, all of their ultimates, right? The Impale on top of the Gravity Field on top of the Equalizer would be really difficult, and then Bullet Time on top of that, right? This huge wombo combo potential of VKS, and IE is just playing in such a way that they never let all 5 members group up. They're always having to respond to something, and that means VKS just doesn't have the capability to use their draft to the fullest.
Yeah, VKS really struggling to get a foothold on them once again. And the individual players we don't even have the bot lane kind of outperforming in the 2v2 as we did last time to give them hope early on. Snaker and Ackerman had their number. The redemption arc of IE's bot lane continues, going from the depths of despair, losing, even looking worse than Marvin and Giggs on Fluxy W7M at times this split, but now, even without having to step back onto the supportive carries, they showed versus Loud they can do carries as well if the time is right, but Snaker can still sit back, be supportive, pick his moment and pounce where needed, but is a reliable rock down there. That is the bot lane that helped IE win the first split of play in 2025, and it seems like we're back to that point.
Yeah, I love the comparison of just like he's a rock, right? Like he's steadfast and he will not move, but if you get a rock thrown at you, it's still gonna hurt. You
can trip over an exposed rock, and then it hurts. You can break your leg doing that.
He can bring the pain, and we have seen it. But just the ability to just be very steadfast and have a calming presence, I think it does a team a lot of good, especially when you're relying on a position such as their jungle, which is occupied by Jose Dioto, who we've talked about. His ability to play carries is so powerful. A lot of junglers in various regions are seen as their like steadying presence on the team, right? They can go to any lane and kind of be that supportive, presence to help their team scale through, or maybe the support is. But I think having an ADC that is just steady and is never going to lose you the game, can always offer you an angle back in, is a really powerful tool, because that you can pay attention to other lanes, or take the time to scale them in the mid game. It offers a lot of flexibility to a comp if your ADC doesn't need the constant babysitting.
Isris Estral pushing in that top side as well. Jose hanging in on this top side of the map, dropping some deep vision, evidently not feeling pressurized to make anything particular happen right now. The Hextech Dragon is live, i.e. with 1. And if they can stack those up, that might give them an excuse to drag VKS into a play. They've got the Jose Diode ultimate. They've got Miri on the bot side ready to rotate up, but they have to respect the Cade Stars team fight. As you'd already mentioned, Bren, the Skarner into Gravity Well, into Equalizer combo. Very, very scary. Magnet Storm from Trimby too. The bullet time, which we haven't even seen once so far, could be devastating if not played around, as the Equalizer will be used to save top lane turret for now instead.
Just they knew that they had no pressure to force a team fight right now, because VKS was getting that dragon uncontested. So smart use from Bull to try and save the tower for as long as he can. Maybe wait for the opportunity for his team to come over. It isn't going to happen. And the back canceled by the True Shot barrage. Nice. There. Now back to the lane I go. Waddles Morteus into the lane. But again, even though, sure, yes, we got that dragon, it was not completely free, as the top lane tower will fall. The feet, I believe, now in the hand very firmly, with the Feet of Warfare and Feet of First Tower in the pockets of IE, going to get those upgraded boots.
It does feel like IE today have absolutely no investment in the Drakes whatsoever. If they happen to be standing in front of it and there's no reason not to take it, they'll be like, I guess we'll have this one. If there is anything else they could be doing, they seem to be choosing to do that instead. They are not even trying to contest VKS at that area, despite how well this game has been going from the get-go. They're happy to avoid or not prioritize that dragon stacking. There's another Cloud Rift fear in game number 2, but as you say, they're always prioritizing gold elsewhere in the map. It's a tower for somebody else, or it's a dive, or it's something else. As currently the Herald going into this mid lane, Ackerman and Miri trying to hold VKS and being able to rotate through, and the mid lane tower still alive. Ackerman just caught on the edge of the Gravity Well, takes a bit of damage. Finally, mid lane turret does fall, and IE, with their goal achieved, will simply back away.
I kind of like the strategy of like, okay, we know we don't need to take all of the early dragons and like force fights. They have a big team fight comp. And just, okay, since we're prioritizing gold, we're prioritizing this wave pressure, this macro. We're going to take these early towers across the map and get pushing waves, and then we can take neutral objectives, because we will be uncontested. We will have no reason not to take it, because the other team's going to be busy taking care of their towers.
Miri finally steps a bit too far forward, loses his flash, gets once again pushed out of the ult. There's the Skarner Impale. And Miryu at last will put a foot wrong. Kissy, the benefactor, picking up the second kill of the game.
Yeah, second kill for Kissy, second kill for VKS. 2-0 now is the victor. And with that, Leandries is actually going to pump out quite a bit of damage. All he has to do is catch you once, and you're going to start ticking down and on to, a relatively chunky support when you consider the ultimate as well, and as well as a top laner that's going to provide some consistent frontline. It's going to get a lot of value in game in
VKS trying to take some aggressive positioning around that mid lane as well, TPing in. Summit still on the bot side, is TPing into the bot side as well. The answer's now going to come through from Bowl. They know they're going to lose the turret if they don't do anything. There's not actually anything on this top side to take right now. There is an Atakan spawning in 15 seconds, but neither team has an easy path onto it. And again, it's just a trade of summoners. VKS they commit into the mid lane, but then back away, and I'm waiting to see what the plan is for Cade Stars. They managed to find a pick onto Miryu, but that's more Miryu's mistake than VKS's opportunity, to be honest. And besides that, we've not really seen much impetus from them in game 2.
Yeah, they haven't really had any drive forward or really any opening they have been able to create. A lot of good vision up here in the top side. If you see, they have 4 or 5 wards in this top jungle slash river, and that's going to give them good vision. Perhaps if IE mistakenly thinks that they can start up the Otacon early on and VKS can respond to it. But the thing IE has to do is continue to deny VKS the team fight. And the thing VKS has to do is force a team fight at some point. Get all 5 members into a ball and run at the enemy team and just force a 5v5 because that's what your comp is better at that. It will win if you do that.
Yes. Now, Jose trying to clear out some vision. Shrimby and Kissy can push him back right here. Kissy with the 2 kills is the only member of VKS that's actually gotten some gold really so far this game. Has 2 items completed and will start to become a menace in those team fights. Good use of the CC. Decent DPS from the ultimate and the snowballing effect of that Chaos Storm. If it gets that first kill and starts to grow over the whole pitched battle, can turn a whole game on its head. But VKS will once again play with respect. Miryu now taking a crack at that ward, but still isn't going to find it. IE pushing into the bot side jungle themselves. VKS need to think about how they're going to respond to this.
I need to be a little careful if they overextend here. Well, all 5 members of VKS are you're seeing VKS only ceding a little bit of space, but they need to respond and clear this wave in mid lane, and that means IE's gonna take their time to start up the Otacon. And again, all of the members of VKS are here. They might be looking for that team fight. This is going to be, I think, the first contested neutral objective of the series.
Yeah, Desamas wants to get his way in there. Bowl's going to be miles away, but Ackerman knocks the Skarner out of contention. Easy Atacon pickup for IE, and now they're thinking about where they want to fight. Ozaniodo gets him with a 4-man knock-up. 1 ult for Desamas, but Bowl now come with the equalizer to burn them down. Ackerman trapped on the wrong side of town. Summit on the front line doing what he can. Ults onto Desamas, looks for at least a single kill. Will find it, but is not going to make it out alive. Surely the flash. Snake is in with a killing spree. A double knockup, and Summit's alive somehow. Snaker looking for more. He blocks, he trades. Jose's back in. How did IE scrap that one out? That was a crazy one.
VKS just did not have the damage across the board. That's the power of being up a good 3k gold, is that you're just able to outlast VKS, unable to delete any of the members of IE particularly quickly, and it allowed for just that steady, consistent damage from Snaker to come in and sneak up on him and do a bunch all at once right there at the end, pick up that kill, and then Jose Diodo coming back, having healed just enough to continue the fight. And man, VKS has got to be kicking themselves after that one because it looked not great for them. But sure, IE got the Otacon, but hey, we found some picks on the end of that. That was a decent fight. They overstepped, and now at least we've got something to play around, right? We've got some stimulus going.
Yeah.
And instead, it turns into a complete and total win for IE, and that's just got to feel really bad.
Yeah, it looks like their best opportunity all day so far for VKS, and they still can't make it work. I feel I don't think I noticed where the bullet time went, if it went anywhere. Morteus is on cooldown, but I didn't see it happen. It might have gone instant cancel by Ackerman or Jose, but we've not seen much out of Morteus so far in this game. Finally, the Dragons are going to be picked up, and let's see a replay. I'm going to try and see where the bullet time goes, and let's just see how this fight plays out.
Yeah, you can see here's the CC. Great spacing from Ackerman. The true shot barrage over top as well.
Was that it? I think that might be the
that
bullet
must
time
have
right there.
been. The bullet time starts, I mean, for a frame.
Yeah.
Before Jose Diodo just hits the knockup. And here it is. Like, you, by all means, Summit should be dead right about here, but a good flash out of the Flame Spitter, a good shield, and look how much extra time this buys. Snaker able to pick up a kill as well before his team comes back in to clean up. And it was so close. I mean, razor's edge margins, especially for Summit and Snaker at the end of that fight. But when you win, you win, and it worked out really well for them.
Yeah, they are able to hands check when a hands check is needed, with Miryu and Jose Diodo re-engaging for the win now. Again, aggressively moving into that topside jungle, extending the gold lead. Atacon now at their backs. And they've taken the Dragon as well. So 2-1 on that front, as the Baron hits the Rift at the 25-minute mark. i.e. a lot of success in that pit so far today. Not going to start it up just yet. Miryu's going to catch that bot side. And we might go back to another slow-paced section right here, Bren, as IE have not been willing to push the pace too hard, as Vigo Arcade Stars, maybe they're looking for it. Forcing the, did they even force the ultimate out of Ackerman? I don't think they even did. They got the heal out of him, but he still keeps the ult.
Yeah, ultimately just gonna step away, and like you said, IE not really feeling pressured at all to up the pace of the game, content with the way it's going. Kissy, though, if you saw the damage charts, well and clearly at the top of the damage charts, which is not something we would have necessarily expected as.
Love that from IE. Miryu just dancing, getting him low, and the perfectly placed ultimate from Snaker threatening with an ult behind. They just completely mousetrap Bowl on the bot side, but will they be able to escape? There's no flash for the Rise. He's no TP of his own, but the TP just a little bit too slow. Kissy trying to get him range. He's tagged him. He's got enough speed, I think, to get him range, and the Rise gonna have to stand and fight. Drops the stasis to keep himself alive a little longer, but it's a pickup for Kissy and Jose. Nowhere else to go on the bot side, threatening onto Morteus, holding his own, but no more abilities to get value out of there. But Snaker is going to take a tower in mid. Summit's going to look for a tower in top lane. IE are not losing anything for free down there.
Yeah, I do like that VKS were able to find 2 shutdowns. I'm glad that they are, finding some plays on the map, but they are getting 2 towers off of that. But a flank teleport, this could turn into something more here, Trajan.
Bowl with the harpoons onto Ackerman. It's going to keep him slowed down. He's still holding the ultimate if he can. Trimby's coming around the corner to try and lock them up further. Summit's there with a Pathmaker and a stun. And IE will escape, so Bowl loses the teleport but cannot find any more. The Baron, though, is still live. Jose still dead. Miryu's going to have a TP almost as soon as he survives, but VKS is sticking it.
Yeah, VKS knowing that they're going to have to come to us. They're going to have to make the play, and we already just got them low off of some good damage on the top side. Here comes the equalizer, finally.
Summit goes down pretty darn quickly. The Baron is going to be secured with a bounty to boot for VKS. Miryu and Jose Diodo just hot-footing it over to see what they can do. They managed to save the last fight. Snaker and Ackerman still poking and prodding. They've managed to find the jungler. A bullet time will catch Ackerman barely on the edge. He slips away, but Jose's in with 3. Snaker's there. Rises in. The 3 versus 4 is on, and IE are looking damn good in it. Boldo will escape. Kissy as well has the HP to play with, and they'll get 2 Baron buffs on the Cage Star solo laners.
Yeah, I thought for a moment with VKS getting the Baron and starting to make their escape, maybe we were going to see a similar tale to last series where they were just losing for the first game, losing for most of the second game, and then take a big objective and can turn that into a win. But IE turned that into even more gold, reclaim their lead with a bunch of kills on the back end, only leaving 2 Baron buffs in their wake. As we are going to get the replay, and we can see how this fight started off. They're just stuck in this jungle and kind of surrounded on all sides. And once the knockup goes, VKS tries to turn with the bullet time, but just doesn't do enough damage. And once the Rise TP comes in, so easy here for IE to clean up the remaining members of VKS.
So bold of Ackerman to try and combo over the wall at about 25 HP and somehow doesn't die to a stray flame splitter, but a credit where it's due, I suppose. Bold enough to go back in to try and trade that kill away. But IE still 5,000 gold ahead. They do not have the Baron to assist with the push. There's no Soul to play for yet as well. There is a Dragon being worked on by Jose. He's going to lock up a Cloud Soul point for them. But VKS can stall the game out for at least another minute or so with this buff. Kissy is 5-1 right now. He's 3 items deep, working on a 4th. He is going to be scaling up. Morteus has 3.5 items on the MF. He hasn't found that perfect bullet time just yet, but if he does, he is going to have the power to make it stick.
Yeah, Kissy's damage is quite frankly very strong right now. I think he still has, even after that last fight, the highest damage total in the game. He's got to make use of that dearth of items. I think I used that word correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong in Twitch chat. I don't know. I don't know linguistics. All right. But 5-1, got multiple items up on the board. Is the only carry potential right now, unless they hit a great bullet time from Morteus. And I think that's something I found interesting is if you look at the the damage totals or the damage per minute from the last series that both of these teams played, a very high, highest I think of all of the players involved today, DPM is Miryu, which you might expect, and a pretty respectable but low damage total from Snaker.
Yeah.
But both Kissy and Morteus had pretty comparable, damage to Miryu, and yet it is Snaker that is, out damaging the Misfortune so far with no huge bullet time pickups to come through. Just not enough damage to come out in these team fights to, keep his team ahead in these like big, almost boat race style fights where just who can just annihilate the other team first.
Yeah, we saw Miryu have to commit the ultimate to get to safety there, not wanting to play with fire as VKS trying to converge. Summit still holding a deep push on bot side with Jose Diodo in the back pocket, stealing away camps if necessary, suffocating out the Cade Stars right now. With nothing on the map really to take, 2 minutes to Baron, 3 minutes to Soul, IE have been content to sit back and let the game just kind of happen around them. Mostly through this series, when there is nothing specific to play for, they will not just set up and look for random picks and plays. They will just kind of wait for an objective to present a reason to move.
Yeah, and I think overall it's working out very well for them. It seems, very intentional, very smart. Of like, we know these are the places where we want to fight, where we want to play for. Keeping this mid wave safe. We're 30 minutes plus into the game, 31 minutes into the game, and that mid tower is still very healthy for IE.
Yeah, there's this Bastion in the mid lane has been more or less untouched. It shows you how well Miryu was doing in that lane, and we said it at the time. He's just sitting under Kissy's tower for the entire laning phase, forcing the push constantly, but somehow there's no punish. There's no roams from Trimbean. Desamis can't get an angle on him. Miryu was able to play so aggressively in the early stages, and VKS could not do a thing about it. Just tells you how much control IE had from the minute one in this game.
Yeah, and they're continuing to push that control around the map. They have vision just everywhere across VKS's jungle. VKS trying to slowly get out, establish that vision line across those jungle exits or entrances from their perspective, and, give them opportunities to walk towards objectives and rotate without, the fear of what are we walking into. But just a solid control of the map continued to be put on by IE, who are just not letting them push that vision forward, not letting them take parts of the map for themselves.
Yeah, and VKS are getting a steady gold income from this style of play. The gold lead hasn't really changed in the last little while because VKS are able to just pick up all these waves. So it's letting them get items on their carries. They are scaling up to some degree, but IE need to use this map vision advantage. They need to be able to control access to the objectives, control access to the Baron, the Soul, and not let VKS get in a good position to use this gold, as right now you can see them being forced back of the tight corridor that is their only option to forge into that side of the map.
Trying to push into this top jungle, are able to get a ward onto the wolves, and that's as much vision as they really have in that area. It's just those 2 wards, and so look at the vision there. Thank you, good toggle from our friends in the Brazilian broadcast, as there's just nothing. The map is so dark for VKS. The night is cold and dark, and VKS are alone, as they don't know if they're getting aggressed on. They don't know if IE is going to start just taking objectives. And here finally comes a little bit of a skirmish.
He flashed in. Summit's on the front line, has to ult to get out of the Magnet Storm. The ultimate is there for Desamis, but they're focusing the Skarner. They can't quite find it. To Summit, though, burns down. Chaos Storm for Kissy prevents the escape, and IE called the play, but they go down 1-0.
It felt a little disconnected there. I don't know if you noticed. Like everyone was backing up, and then all of a sudden also Summit. And so now they're on the back foot. They did get out the Equalizer and the Chaos Storm. So this is a playable 4v5 because not a lot of ultimates committed on the side of IE.
Yeah, they still have Jose Odo's Cyclone. Still got Ackerman's Unbroken Will. They can still try and play this out. Snaker with the blue buff as well is going to need that mana to get some poke down. It might just come down to a smite fight, and IE, they need to be careful not to lose too much here because there's a Baron waiting. If someone takes a decided victory, Ackerman suffering on the front line. They need to try and flip it. They go in, but it's Skarner. Desamis has it. It will not be the soul for Jose, and he can't get away. VKS strike back. Desamis falls on the other side. Ackerman forced to ult, runs to safety. Snaker and Miryu, the carries of Isrus Estral, holding the line, and VKS Tread with caution. A TP into the backline. Summit looking for more. Ackerman avoids the blind equalizer. He's still alive, looking for that. Once again, that re-engage. Ball slowed. In comes Snaker, but he's right into the bullet time cancel. Morteus flashes in. Down to Miryu. Morteus misjudges the play, and now Summit arriving to try and keep this alive. Snaker on the re-engage. The Chaos Storm is back up. Tags Snaker, burning him down, but it's not enough. Another Arcane or True Shot Barrage goes wide. And Summit now chasing down Kissy. VKS, it looked like they had it. It looked like that was the fight for them, but they still can't make it work.
I watched that whole fight, and I listened to you commentate it, and I still can't believe that it wasn't just a total win for VKS. I'm kind of in shock a little bit. Here it is. VKS got the objective. They're winning this 4v5 fight. Like, they've got this angle back in, and just again the same thing that happened around the Baron pit previously, where they just can't burn through these bigger members of IE fast enough. Too slippery is Snaker, too tanky is Ackerman, and so they're spent all their time. Look at this. This is on like 2x speed. They can't find any kills. And it buys so much time for members of IE to get back into the fight and clean things up in ways that this should not happen.
Yeah, it's so tight, but time and again, IE have clutched up in this game. Still, they could not find the Cloud Soul just yet. The gold lead reduced by about 1,000, now below the 5k mark, but still, it's so difficult for VKS to make these fights stick. They have the damage, they have the tools, but they cannot lay them in the right order. And now what they don't have is the vision. It has to be a blue ward. They can see what's going on. They're not going to get there in time. IE surely will have this. Disarmus knocked out by Ackerman, and it's a Baron versus Ancestral. Jose was on the flank. He wasn't even in the pit, but now they've got VKS trapped in the corridor. He's looking for the Cyclone. Equalizers to slow them down. Summit's deep, too deep in fact, and Miryu has to step away. The bullet time does a lot of damage, and he ults back.
Yeah, ultimately going to pick up the Baron, but Summit, again, a little too far in, gets stuck, and gives over another kill. Jose Dioto looking for the flank instead of smiting the Baron in a bit of a dangerous position there. Kind of got caught in the VKS jungle. VKS obviously not going to be happy about giving over the Baron, but have reduced its power by forcing backs out of all of IE, taking a kill, and that will finally take the mid lane turret. 37 minutes, nearly 38 minutes into the game, mid lane turret falls, and so that is some more gold. The Baron power play not looking too hot for IE at the moment, but they are finally going to be able to push out of their base and find some value on it here with about 2 minutes remaining.
A mark of the damage that Cade Stars have started to do. We can see now, if the ults are allowed to stick, if their carries are allowed to press their buttons, IE have to be respectful. They cannot simply assume they're going to win the fights anymore. Yes, they are clutching well. They're playing well under pressure, but VKS are starting to get a handle on this one, and it is not going to be just so easy. 38 minutes in, a gold lead of less than 5k really doesn't mean that much. We're looking at a lot of full inventories coming around the corner before too long.
Yeah, and it's gonna once all these inventories are, once everyone is ready to go and done up, that gold lead just doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter that you could be 13k ahead, but if both teams are full build, there is no difference. That gold is just sitting in your pocket, weighing you down, and so IE need to use their advantage to make some sort of play. They've really stalled out their aggression here. They were able to get that one inhibitor in the mid lane, and beyond that, they have just, the engine is choking. It needs some air. They've got to put something behind it.
IE again taking caution in their approach to this game. They are still in fairly good control of the map, with the Dragon coming up in 30 seconds. Summit's been caught against the wall. He's been dragged back. He's going to get melted to the front line again. The top laner for IE suffering in this late game. Not so tanky, but IE have to push in topside. They're going to try and split the focus of Cade Stars. They'll try and take an inhib. Back and away is Jose. He's not even going to wait around to see as Miryu picks up this top tower. He's sticking around right now. VKS, they're going for the Dragon, but they need to think about the base as well.
Miryu going to take that top lane tower, going to look for an inhibitor as well. And he's not really scared of the two AP threats upon him. A huge shield come out, but he will go down to the chaos.
He held his flash right there. I don't know if he didn't quite have it until I looked, but it seems like he could have tried to flash away, chose not to. Dragon secured by VKS, so 3 now apiece in this game, and the top inhib survives, as the observers have reminded us. So IE don't even get any real map pressure as a reward for that. It's kind of just slowed them down even more.
I harken back to my comparison of IE in the previous game, where they're playing like this, the top thrill dragster. They can go really, really fast, and they get up and they get the game is over and they've won. But now they're on the ascent and it's stalling out, and if they are not careful, they're going to fall backwards, and all of a sudden VKS is going to be in the driver's seat. The gold lead down lower than it has been in probably 20 minutes. And another fight maybe here to start in the jungle.
Again, Summit just walking around the jungle, gets caught in the front line. This time should maybe get to safety. Ults back in though, but lovely knockup from Ackerman. The jungle corridor is terrifying for VKS, but the equalizer is good too. Members on both sides dropping. Miryu has arrived. Ackerman again with a knockup. Kissy though knocks him back. Snaker is in to get one kill, but Rise is down. VKS, they're taking the wins where they need them now. Who remembers where the series versus Red turned on its head? It was halfway through game 2, and look at us now.
We are now in a position where, once again, VKS have just able to find some value on the back of a fight, and instead of getting a good fight that mostly goes their way, and then suddenly IE is able to clutch it from behind, the mistakes have really been punished this time, as 4 members down for VKS, traded for only 2, or 4 members down for IE, my apologies, traded for only 2 on the side of VKS, and able to take an inhibitor and get some map pressure back. We might have a contender for the new longest game in the LTA South playoffs, because I believe the previous one was from Loud and IE at a 42-minute, 30-second game, and I don't think this one's going down in the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, we're going to have that over the line before you know it, and IE need to really start thinking about what's going on. They were the first team to lose an inhib in this game, what they have been firmly in control of for the first 30 minutes. Now at 42, things have started to go very, very wrong. Summit is 1-6 right now and has achieved basically nothing on the Cassante for a long, long while. Cade Stars, buoyed by this, the momentum finally swinging back in their favor. They've got a Baron to play over in 20 seconds, and they are going to have control of the pit.
Yeah, they've got good vision. The thing we were talking about, the IE so well, just choking out the vision on the map and having control of the spaces they need, has now flipped in the opposite direction. VKS stepping forward and getting the control of the map where the next big objective is going to be. Teleport come in. This is not going to be a completely uncontested Baron. We're going to see probably a big fight. The True Shot Barrage comes out. I wonder who's going to kick this one off. It feels like both teams are just waiting for an excuse to pull the trigger.
And Summit really desperately trying to ward this brush, but they just cannot get one in there. Miryu's gone back to pushing mid lane instead. VKS, they have flash on Kissy. They're looking for Rise, in fact. He has the flash. He's flashed over the wall. He survives. And Rumble ult committed, but Desamus is on his own. Drags 2 back into the bullet time, but it's the tankiest members. They don't care. Desamus is going to be killed in the front line. Jose is in, trying to get the important carries, but where is Kissy? The Rise ult into the back line. They're looking for this victor. They've got the root. They've got the stasis. They need to finish him on the way out. Snaker times the Mystic Shot. Miryu holding down the fort with a stasis of his own. And there it is. IE. They clutch it up themselves once again. They were taken to the brink, but they find the ace at 44.
Yeah, and at 44-minute ace, the exceptionally long timers now, they don't have a way, but it shouldn't matter. They should be able to melt through these remaining towers and take the game here. A 44-minute game, 44 total kills come out between these two teams, and just really kind of a messy one from both sides. VKS giving up too much early on, and now IE throwing it away there at the end of the game. I think both teams kind of need to clean up their act going into game 3.
Yeah, I mean, IE looked very, very clean for most of it, but as soon as things started to go so badly wrong, it was Snaker 1v3 defending the Nexus towers at one point against all the carries of Cade Stars. And they managed to find that fight with that last little play where Miryu manages to distract VKS and they split across the fight, right? Kissy and the bot lane go after Miryu, but they can't lock him down. And then DeSamus on the other side stays in too deep and gets caught. And just in that one moment, VKS, they weren't playing together. They weren't stacked up as 5. And in that moment, it falls apart again. And IE just revel in the chaos that they cause. That is crazy comebacks from them. And VKS have been denied their Game 2 comeback this time around. And I don't know, do they have enough in the tank to try and find another one? Because they are 0-2 down right now.
Yeah, they've got to really dig deep and find something different and change something up. You mentioned them that getting split in that last fight. It feels like for
We are back, everybody, for game number 3. IE somehow ended up 2-0 after what looked like the VKS comeback was on, but they could not quite get it over the line, and now they've got to put 3 together in a row if they want to advance to the next round.
Yeah, and it was so close to being the same exact story as week one. The game two late game comeback slash throw, however, which depending on which perspective you look at it, and VKS, then yeah, they're back in the series. But IE a little bit more disciplined than Red and able to hold on to their. It wasn't even a particularly massive lead. They just kept it steady the whole game. They took their lead
Yeah.
and then they just held on to that lead for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
As now we are seeing some difference in bands. Mr. Jace from Arcane is now off of the board, and an early pickup for the Lucian immediately. And I think the correct play and traded out for the Senna. The big thing is if you ever see a Lucian, don't pick the Nami thinking you're being cheeky, stealing it away from him, because he's got, as RMC phrased it this way, and not me, he has other waifus down there in the bottom.
Yeah, we don't judge Lucian for that, right? But ultimately, the Nami takeaway is not as good of an idea as you think it is, Pain. So the answer has been the Senna for Snaker here, as Miryu earned himself an Akali ban in that first rotation. The Senna has been banned away quite a lot, but they wanted to try and pinch Miryu a little bit out of that mid lane, but Senna is going to go into Snaker's hands, so they're going to have a reliable bot lane down there, as Yorick is taken for Summit too. Now, in the 1 versus 1, Summit has been doing very, very well. The team fighting got a little bit suspect in that second game, so we're just going to leave him in the side lane and let him have a good time by himself. So, VKS, they've gone for the Lucian Nami, and they've got the Cho'Gath locked in now, presumably for Bowl up in top lane as well.
I actually really like the Cho'Gath as an answer to the Yorick, who can do a lot to make his life just kind of unfun. You just ult the Maiden every time it's up and eat it. And even if you already have the max stacks and can't get any more off of minions and monsters, you still turn off Maiden with a button. And without ultimate, Cho'Gath is not, he's not as threatening, but he's still a very powerful champion, has a lot of utility. Without Maiden, Yorick is just not a guy. He's barely a cannon minion. He's like a Gromp on the map.
Yeah.
He just kind of sits there and he's going to Q your tower, I guess.
Does not hit. We're into the second round of bans right here. The Annie taken away from Kissy, and IE with a sort of undead, sort of revenant theme they're going for right now on their team composition. We'll see if the Viego can come through perhaps for Jose. But VKS banning away the Nocturne, trying to take a Nocturne Ori combination out of it, and right now we are yet to really see what IE's comp is going to be. This is not going to be a standard front-to-back comp at the very least. Games 1 and 2 were very kind of simple to execute on. This one has a Senna, which automatically demands a different way of playing from the bot lane, the Yorick, which has decisions about split pushing and macro to be made there, so this is not going to be as basic of a plan for IE, and we'll see if they can actually look as good and as controlled and as reserved and kind of as well thought out when they have a little bit more of a complex machine to pilot.
Yeah, we've talked about how they were playing very much by the book, and it was a very good, well-written book. And now they've put down the book, they finished the last chapter, and they said, I think I could write my own book. How hard is it to be an author? And we're going to see if this is a bestseller or if this is a huge flop, because like you said, there are some big decisions to be made about, we have to play the game differently around the Senna. With the Nautilus, traditionally you're going to use the Nautilus as, you can really bully and run over certain lanes. That's not going to happen into Lucian and Nami. So you're looking for those big team fight engages, but you might not have your Yorick, your top laner, when you're making those engages. So can you play a 4v5? And I do like the follow-up there, giving themselves a great, powerful mid laner in Aurora. That is someone that Miryu can play really, really well. It's a very good effect. So it's a good pickup in this second rotation. Now, I think we have seen Kissy play the Tristana. And honestly, I forget what my opinion is on it. I cannot remember if it was very good or very bad.
I think it was good. It was in their series versus... Who was it they played in the first round? Red, I guess. I think it was before that. Maybe in the cross-group elimination or one of their matches they played where Kissy was having a rough series, but the Tristana game was very good. So he did have a good Tristana game recently. They've got the Maokai locked up for Dasamus as well, which is a very good pick for him. And I'm wondering what Jose Deodo is going to show us here, because Somebody's probably going to have to try and deal with Bowl at some stage, but maybe if you just choose to ignore it, take out the double AD carries, that's the choice. But Jose with the Trundle, there is your tank killer. So we have seen the Trundle just surge back in play rate very, very quickly as of this last patch in pro play across multiple regions, but perhaps just with the resurgence of tanks up in that jungle and topside role, we are going to see the Trundle naturally come back into view right there. But it is a strange composition that IE have. It's like burst out of mid lane, they've got sort of sustained damage and supportive bot lane with a DPS jungle that's kind of an off tank and a split pusher. This one I think is very much less cohesive by nature, and we'll see if that affects the way IE actually choose to play this game out.
Yeah, meanwhile, on the other side, VKS have a support that can pick either of their two marksmen on the team to really kind of buff up. Obviously, early game going to just pocket the Lucian. But if Kissy gets a good lead, the ability to drop the Nami E onto the Tristana jumps in, gets a slow because of the Nami E, and then you can play off of that as well. So they're going to have some flexibility as to where the carry potential comes from. But I do think that IE is fine with their draft. It's not conventional, but I think everyone on their team has a champion that they like piloting. So yeah, I'm kind of looking for that to kind of show through, to play a comfortable game, okay, where we can almost, despite having a very different compositional style that should demand a different play style, be able to continue to do what they have done fairly well, at least in the early game of both games, which was pick and choose their battles at the right times in places where they feel comfortable winning and just throw their gold lead.
Yeah, so there's definitely feels very playable to me for VKS, and they did come very, very close to withstanding the onslaught in game 2 and pulling themselves together to find that win when they were playing those comps, those fights out so well, sticking together. And it was only by pulling them apart that IE managed to disrupt that resurgence that they had. And now we'll see if they've kept that resurgence going through into game number 3. IE, of course, do have the relief of taking that win. They have 3 chances to secure their advancement into the top 3. As we're back onto Summoner's Rift, Vivo Cade starts with a long, long mountain to climb. And Isra Zestral so dangerous today. At any moment, they could snuff their hopes out.
Mountain to climb. That's a champ we haven't seen come out for either jungler, and we know both of them play it so well, is the Pantheon.
Yeah.
And does any other champion in the game have quotes that just go quite as hard?
Probably not, to be honest. Pantheon is...
He's so awesome.
Yeah, he is incredibly sick, especially on the rebrand that they had for him a while back. I probably don't want to know when that was. It's probably going to make me feel old if you tell me how many years it actually was. So I'll just
I won't tell you.
Please do not inform me, or I will turn to dust instantly.
Now, the map here, we're gonna see some. I assume some early pressure from, your bot lane being who they are. Lucian, Nami just able to take over lanes in such a method. But I am wondering, Trajan, if you have any thoughts on where does VKS go, because they've had their choice of like early objectives in the first game, and then they were able to make some things happen, at least, before they got run over. The lead was never so insurmountable in the second game. What has VKS got to do differently to make things stick, to make any advantages they take really matter?
Well, it seems like we haven't seen much of Desamus, honestly, throughout this entire series. Even in that second game when they were trying to come back, so much of that first stage, we just did not see much activity from him, and IE were able to sit back and play the game at their own pace. He's got the Maokai now, which does have solid ganks with the WQ combo. He's got the ultimate as well, and what I don't want to see is Desamus playing sort of backline CC secondary engage for VKS. I want to see him try and take the fight forward, because Kissy and Morteus need somebody to back them up. They have these aggressive champions. Oh my word, Kissy has to flash away, and they could use some assistance, as we can maybe see. Like, you cannot let Miryu just walk all over mid lane for the entire laning phase again. You need to make sure that Snaker is not going to be stealing any 2v2 kills. I want to see Desamis sacrificing his game to make sure that his laners are actually going to come out okay.
Yeah, now we're going to have to see if he is able to pull that off, and watch if his laners are able to stick in and get into position. They still need to find that fight early on. I think that's ultimately the big failing, I think, in both of the previous games for VKS, was even in positions where they were like, maybe they had a good position, they had taken an objective early, what have you. They never found that big early game fight to really accelerate the pace. Instead, they just, like you said, let IE play at the rate that they wanted, the rate they were comfortable with, which was nice and slowly. The longest game in the playoffs so far. I'm going to double check. It might have been the longest game of the split.
Yeah, we haven't had too many incredibly long ones, with Loud not going as deep and not necessarily having the same longevity as before. Kissy aggressively onto Miryu right here. He's got to be very careful. This explosive charge is going to hurt. One more auto. Not there. And Miryu holds onto his flash. Kissy, crucially, without it, means he cannot push for that kill.
Yeah, real nerves of steel there to hold on to the flash. As Miryu going to stick around with the Aurora, is confident that if they go ahead and force something onto him, that his Jose Diodo, his Trundle, will come in and make it happen. Now finally going to back as the wave crashes into the tower. Is he trying to find the advantage early? And that's, what we talked about. We need VKS to actually utilize their advantages.
Ackerman has to flash away, but the flashing from Mateus gets that first blood. Trimby receives it. Snaker drops the root. Doesn't have the mana to force for more. Mateus, in fact, diving in deep, and Snaker barely slips away. That's what VKS wanted to see today.
Yeah, and, you might be a little remiss to be happy about the gold going on to the Nami, but as I've been playing a lot more Nami recently, and I can tell you that early gold does so much for you, because being able to pick up just the extra mana regen and the extra cooldowns and continue to poke and harass early on in that lane, or to pick up the extra AP to make your healing and shielding stronger, as well as some extra damage. Just having that little bit extra gold, as you see 2 books come out for Trimby, is going to make him just so much more annoying to deal with, as we see how this fight unfolded early.
Seems like it's just decent poke from Ackerman, and he sticks around too long. Takes too many stray shots, and at that point, you can't really get away from a Lucian Nami. They've got so much mobility between the two of them, and Snaker, frankly, he's lucky to get away with his life. That's not a calculated thing. He just happened to be on the right side of zero.
Yeah, that was very, very close. A little bit more damage.
Dearie me.
Auto. And here they go!
We get to the ult and uses it to switch places. Miryu with a 1v2 outplay. Summit, not long for this world as the wave crashes in. This is going to be a 3 versus 1. He's got level 6, but needs to be watching out for Bol's ultimate. It's going to drop low, flashes away. Morteus trying to dash around, and now Yorick sidestepping, but the bubble lands. Bol will feast upon him, and 1 kill apiece across top and mid lane.
Yeah, a good rotate up to force the tower dive, not let the Yorick just do what he wants in the top side. So a really good play. That outplay in the mid lane was just so good from Miryu, using the ult to reposition back and get away after taking the kill. Was fantastic. It felt very out of nowhere. He steps up and all of a sudden everyone's engaging on him. He still is able to walk away with the kill.
Yeah, I thought he was just done for sure, but holds his nerve, and now Summit tries to threaten onto Trimby, who doesn't have the flash. He sidesteps the cage crucially, and Summit won't get the counter kill. Trimby very, very close to going down right there, but he's got the Maiden up now, and it's going to start that push going, so we'll see if he has any more pressure to deal with. Here's a look at that mid play again.
Yeah, and to jump into a good route, but just so much burst damage from Kissy. That is the big power of that mid laner, of Aurora, to just offer this huge burst out of nowhere and burns the flash in the top side before dying as they cancel it, since we're getting right into a fight.
Dear. This is what I worried about, Brent. When I saw Summit gets the Maiden out, he wants to push up, and VKS know that that's the plan. They simply send 4 members up top to deal with it, and they get the kill without too much trouble. Now, Morteus is in mid lane getting pushed back by Miryu, and they've got bot lane push for Snaker and Ackerman once again, but it's going to be matched by a Tristana and a Cho'Gath. They're not going to outpush this duo.
No, they are not going to outpush this duo, but they are going to pick up plates in 2 separate lanes, and so try and get some gold onto more members to compensate for the fact they lost their top. They lost out on a feat now as well, and just going to try and recoup some value across the board.
Summit gonna sheepishly return to the lane right here. No summoners, no ultimate. Just gonna have to farm up what he can for the time being. VKS opening a small gold lead, but now IE rotating into mid lane. Miryu drops the ultimate there, catches with a hook onto Trimby, and that is going to be one dead Nami. The depth charge as well, ticked over to 6 Morteus with nothing left to do. Miryu picking up the credit. That's what we wanted to see for IE fans. Miryu needs the gold. He's got the Dark Seal, stacking it up, and IE clap back in the mid.
Yeah, just a really smart use to overload the mid lane. You know that even if Lucian Nami would win the 2v2 on their own, we have this huge burst mage who's going to capitalize on all the CC that Ackerman is able to provide. A really well-timed play. And again, IE are they are able to pick up these early objectives like they did in game 2. And they do seem to be pretty comfortable with the pace of the game, but it has not been unlike game 1 and 2, it has not been this just uncontested show. VKS are at least making a game of it.
Okay. No, that's not us, guys. Just to be clear, that's the official broadcast. We had nothing to do with that one. I'm not taking responsibility for that, but we are back in, so no worries.
What are we talking about again?
Yeah. 3 kills to 3. IE back in control of the gold lead now, and for once they have actually taken that first dragon. They've got the chem tech done with an infernal next to take. Jose has been covering the lanes and focusing on getting objectives thus far. Desamas has been the one getting stuck in as I had wanted. So he got that kill in top lane. Sadly, the mid lane didn't go as planned, but he is still playing the way I think that he needs to play to get VKS out of this early game looking good.
Yeah, even though the play didn't ultimately work out, that was more just because Miryu played the play really well. I don't think it was the wrong play to go for. Even with the low, health on Kissy. Kissy might have wanted to wait just a little bit longer to allow time for his jungler to get in. But ultimately, if sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. I like that he's at least looking for them.
Bolt caught up in the ring there. Holds his flash as well, and the Maiden summoned once again. So Summit going to get right back to pushing up here, and VKS not in a position to stop him straight away this time. But without the TP too, he's gonna cancel the back for now. As Miryu and Kissy still going at it. This very close mid lane matchup's been shifted down to bot lane. Both of them with huge bursts, both of them with kill potential, solo kill potential. So they have to tread with caution there. Morteus as well, threatening onto Snaker. Snaker with the static shift completed as a small gold lead over Morteus as well, which is what you want to see for IE, and he's got wave clear to boot now, so this Senna Nautilus has gotten out of the bot lane without too much issue.
Yeah, and the static shiv Senna is really nice, adds some wave clear onto an ADC that sometimes struggles with it, as well as an ability to just get damage down, utilize that really long attack range to hit multiple targets, target the enemy laners or the enemy carries when they're grouped up. And so it provides a lot of extra utility, which is that's what we're looking for from Snaker as a very utility focused ADC. And they're playing out their lane about as best as you can. You don't want to get run over early on by the Lucian Nami, and so to pick up that kill in the para kills in the mid lane rather, they're playing out this lane particularly well.
Oh dear, not playing this lane so well, unfortunately. Snaker has to flash away after taking a point-blank culling. Was not enjoying the experience, has to step back. Dragon now spawned, and we see Jose heading onto that bot side. Desamas as well. So we might see IE continue their out-of-character Dragon focus in this game to keep themselves topped up. Kissy's not going to be around. He's up in that top side without TP right now, so this would be a good chance for them to avoid the threat of the Tristana.
Yeah, the one person we actually really haven't heard from this game, good or bad, has been Jose Diodo on this Trundle. Just kind of hanging out in the jungle, taking his camps, doing his thing, but able to take a dragon in the early game as well as 2 of the grubs. And he's going to start up the dragon again, and that is something Trundle is pretty good at. One of the best junglers in the game at just solo clearing these neutral objectives.
Yeah, and it's not going to be contested once again. Miryu pushing it on this bot side. Bolt having to deal with the Aurora for the time being. So IE going to go 2 dragons up. Desamus instead taking a position on top side, taking some camps away. Maybe getting some vision down, dropping a sapling or 2 to get some control over that top side. And VKS, this time they are the ones happy to trade the dragon for topside map control. Summit being very careful up here, as he knows he hasn't seen Desamus for a while and does not want to get locked in a room with Kissy.
Trajan, it's an equal chance. Oh my goodness.
Looks like maybe he does actually. And Desamus is coming in the corner. Morteus, Trimbia there. Summit, unfortunately, could not stay safe for long enough. Backs away. The center ult is there. It gives him a little bit of a shield, but it cannot keep him alive. Not against 4 champions.
My goodness, unfortunate overstay there. A good tower dive to come through the Dawning Shadow, unable to prevent it. It's a huge chunk of damage taken out of Bull there in the bottom lane.
You could see on Summit's player cam, he's laughing and smiling away. He knows what's going on. He was 4-man dive, not really a way to get out of that one if they had chosen to pull the trigger. They did get the bot lane turret in the meantime, IE, so they're getting gold themselves on the other side of the map as well. And they don't lose their top lane. Kissy being low enough and wanted to get healed up and back out on the map, did not stick around to force the issue on the top lane outer. So IE still coming away gold favorite from these trades. 2,000 now is the lead, and this time they are the one with the early dragon lead. It is a 3rd Cloud Rift in a row. And
that is what I was going to bring up before that dive on the top side.
It must be said, the Cloud Rift has the highest win rate of all rifts, like of all Cloud Souls, and it literally always has. Every single year this is the case, and it's been Cloud all day, and it's been IE wins all day. So, you know, that's all I'm saying. You know, they do seem to have the right rift for victory today. Is
super duper strong. Extra movement on the map means you are just in position and ready to go before the enemy team can, as well as dropping your ultimates and getting a huge burst. Movement speed is an undervalued combat stat, I think, by a lot of, you know, like players who play the game a little more casually and don't, you know, participate as much with like the esports or the high level pro play, because the ability to just sidestep something that otherwise you wouldn't have, that extra little bit of movement speed could be the difference between getting caught by a Morgana Q and then the whole team collapses on you and you're dead, or just walking away.
Oh, Morteus hooked up by the Nautilus. You can't be letting that happen, brother. He's barely healed to keep alive. Trimby clutches to keep the AD carry safe, but these are mistakes. You cannot afford Cade Stars. Not 0-2 down in the series.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that mistake's going to cost them another neutral objective. Start up the Rift Herald there. Shelly going to go cleanly into the hands of IE, just using the pressure, the damage they got onto the enemy ADC to force everyone away and take a free objective.
Here? Are we killing here? Maybe we're killing here. Flash away from Bull.
Of course is a flash.
Okay, fair enough. Miryu knows the damage better than me. Absolutely. Go for it, brother. And Bull loses the flash to get away. IE have secured that Herald as well. There is a mid lane outer waiting to be taken. So I imagine it's going to be a reset. And we'll see if they want to just come and pummel down that structure.
That does mean despite the feat of warfare going over to VKS relatively early on, the other 2 feats are in the hand of IE, who will once again, for the 3rd straight game, have those advanced boots. And those aren't, you know, game enders, but it is certainly nice to have.
Absolutely. Snaker and Ackerman holding down mid lane once again. This has been a little treacherous for them in the past, but they have avoided going down at least. Putting some vision down, trying to control more of the map. And the side laners for IE continue chilling out on their personal missions. And this is where we maybe again see IE, who have actually been playing at a higher pace this game than the last couple. They're not playing as slow as before. And maybe they're trying to learn from that game too, where they almost threw the whole thing away by potentially taking it too slow with the lead that they had.
Yeah, now they're trying to utilize their lead, actually push it and grow it further, not just content to passively sit on what they have. That's something we noted in the last game, was that IE got that 5,000 gold lead fairly early on by like 15 to 20 minutes or so in that mid game, and then it just didn't grow for the next 20 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah, ults committed in the mid lane. Miryu dropping the between worlds with a little bit of damage across the board. Ackerman couldn't find the hook. Kissy left alone with topside. Is going to find this turret finally, but traded with mid already, and Summit has the push bot lane, but not choosing to push it. Snaker takes another culling. Loses half his HP. Of course, the center can heal it back up. Miryu steps back and chunks out Bowl for good measure. A hook onto this Cho'Gath. No flash, remember. The damage is good, but is it enough? Ackerman is down. Miryu takes the trade. TP in from Kissy. Summit as well on the other side. Jose continuing this play. Yorick looking for anybody, but cannot lock them in the ghoul cage. And IE will have to accept the 1-for-1 as they peel down. A dragon for the taking would put them on soul point.
A dragon indeed, and they are the first to rotate over, meaning if VKS want to contest this, they're going to have to push through into IE, and they're just choosing not to. It's not a fight they want to take. They're going to continue to try and push the mid lane and get some pressure onto this mid lane turret.
I can't remember the last time I saw anyone fight over a dragon in this series, to be honest. It feels like, no, everyone's just happy to trade them for something else, but unfortunately, VKS have traded it for standing in mid lane and then pressing the recall button. That's unfortunate. Not really what you want to see. So IE on soul point once again. They've got 2 items completed on Miryu as well. The Storm Surge, fully burst-centric. Luden Storm Surge, Sword Boots, upgraded to be triumphant as well, likely on the next back. Miryu, if he finds anybody sleeping in a brush, anybody without any defense, he is going to pop them like a balloon.
And we see that he was doing that to the Cho'Gath. Even the Cho'Gath, who's the biggest, tankiest, most healthy tank you could think of, is Summit.
Oh dear.
Summit.
Flash and he's actually alright. They're putting the ghoul cage up has slowed Desamis down, and Kissy cannot quite get in range. I thought it was done for, but a flash will get him out.
Oh, that was a close one. And, you know, we have seen this from Summit before, but being able to just absorb pressure by time, that is kind of what Yorick does. He forces you to respond to him, and if you're responding to Yorick, you are not defending your top tower.
Absolutely. Miryu continuing to bully Bowl up and down the rift. Kissy, though, with some free time on this turret, is going to do a bit of sieging of his own. The Tristana, with an explosive charge, is going to take it almost 100-0. Unlikely to secure it entirely, or maybe he actually will. Is going to get locked in the cage. Will he jump to safety? Yes, he will. Summit not going to be able to do much about this, it seems. With no flash, Kissy is just out of there.
Smart commit from Kissy. Knows that he can just rocket jump away once he detonates the charge and is able to take down a tower and get some cross-map pressure, keep some gold in the pocket of his team. Summit perhaps overextending once again. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. Finally gets some vision.
And now he knows what he knows, which includes that Desamis is over the wall and is going to back away. Good choice of ward placement for Summit there. 0-3, but is still doing what Yorick is designed to do. He is drawing pressure across the map, and if he's ever ignored, if he draws that pressure, look what happens. IE straight onto Atakan.
Yeah, and IE have gotten Atakan in the previous 2 games. It's a big buff, unlike the Dragon's Elder will continue to respawn if you somehow manage to go a multiple Elder game. You can get a multiple Baron game, but Atakan's only once, and here goes everyone to commit to it.
Bubble onto Jose, but it can't stop the Atakan, but he's very, very low, has to flash away. Ackerman hooks onto Morteus, then flash into safety himself. VKS, they arrive barely too late, and they can't get their hands on anybody. Meanwhile, Summit's got the push in mid lane. Ackerman with a lovely hook again! Lollipops onto Morteus. He has been drawing a bead on this Lucian today, and IE, the fight continues, but it's still very, very close. Low targets that could be reset central for Kissy. Miryu looking for a burst target, pops the Nami, and Kissy is in onto Snaker, and Jose gets 1 kill, jumps out. Summit TP's in, distracts the Kissy Tristana, and Miryu again, somehow, some way. Low HP, still taking kills left and right. The ace for IE, they clutch it up again.
It felt like Kissy on the Tristana could have tried to finish off the Trundle, but just enough time bought, and ultimately goes down, does a little short hop, tries to deal with Summit's teleport, and it's not going to matter, as now it turns into another good play for IE. Talking about making things happen, utilizing your gold lead to grow your gold lead. They have 3 dragons, they've gotten Otacon, they've gotten 2 grubs, and yes, the kills look close, but it has really just been IE and VKS trying to find what cleanup they can, and mostly only against poor Summit in the top lane.
Yeah, he has been the only one they've been able to stick on, really. Ackerman continuing to nail these super crucial hooks, and VKS, I wanted Desamas to sack his lane for his junglers. He has done that. He invested heavily in trying to get his laners ahead, Morteus and Kissy, but the carries just aren't performing in the critical fights. They're caught by hooks. They're missing target selection. They're getting confused. They're getting split focused. They're not able to clutch up and save the game in the way that IE's carries have been able to. Miryu is 5-0-4. He's got his Medjais now ready for more stacking, and a hook in from Ackerman once again. Bowl on the front line, but Miryu drops the ult. He's been caught now. There's a shutdown to be picked up here. They're gonna find one, and IE, as I say that, they do overstep their mark. They lose a carry, but they get a turret in bot.
That's a really good play from Trimby, who has been playing magnificently, really, despite the struggles of VKS. I believe Trimby has 100% kill participation.
He's been trying his little heart out today.
Yeah, he was able to hit a fantastic tidal wave into the bubble, and that's, what allowed a big shutdown to go over. Maybe we're looking for more here, as all 5 members of IE, or all 4 remaining members, rather, of IE are grouped up in this mid lane river, getting ready for the dragon, and all 5 members of VKS are grouped up here at the bottom of the river.
If they could just wait for Miryu, he's going to TP in off the fountain for sure, but VKS don't want to wait for that to happen. Now here he comes. In comes IE Miryu, and the rest of VKS peel back. They don't want to go toe-to-toe with Aurora. It's going to be a flip on the dragon, though, at this rate. Oh my god, Miryu flashes over the wall. Shotgun blast the Cade Stars frontline into tatters in the wind. The rest of Cade Stars fleeing for their lives. This Aurora has been absolutely sensational. Morteus and Trimby need to get past the gatekeeper of Summit. They turn on him to try and take him down to give themselves a semblance of a chance. The culling comes out, and Morteus cannot even find that. No. Miryu with a killing spree found Trimby on his own, and Morteus left running for his life outside the safety of the base. And who else but Miryu to lock up another kill, another ace, and this might just be the series.
Yeah, it could be the series right here. It's only Desamas up, and now finally Bull to follow. They have to be very careful, because if they go down, who is going to stop these guys? They are just storming through VKS's base.
They're working on the turrets. Bowl is trying his best, but he's locked up. He can't do enough. The turrets are down. Kissy gets one. If he can find the resets, IE might not be able to win just yet. Miryu hunts for the Cho'Gath, but can't find it. Kissy and Trimby now. You mentioned that Trimby has more than one carry that he can buff to success, and IE are a bunch of resets waiting to happen, so they call the whole thing off. The game continues for now.
I think ultimately a smart play from IE to just peel off. Yes, they could have tried to go after the Nexus, tried to win the game right then and there. But if you fail, if you try that and you just fall over yourselves, you piddle down your leg and it's all over, you give so much gold over to Kissy that it would be really disastrous. So you're very early in the game. It's only 25 minutes in. Just backing off, and sure, those towers might respawn, but you got so much value and will get so much pressure continuing on here.
You can see, again, just on the player cams always for IE, they're so comfortable. They're so comfortable in this game. They're laughing, they're smiling, even when the game is going on. Even before they were so close to winning the series, their attitude and their atmosphere has been so positive, and they're playing like it. They're playing very well together. Now they're working on the Baron Ackerman, hooking for hooks as always. They've peeled off, in fact, maybe not wanting to risk a steal or a Baron flip when they don't need it to win this game, as they've got a turret down to get Desamas knocked into a hook. Here comes the fight back from VKS, though. Miryu in with a massive ultimate again. He takes one, and just like that, VKS start to come apart at the seams. IE with a dominant final play. Emphatic is their victory. 3-0 IE. They knock out Loud. They knock out Vivo, Cade Stars. A well-deserved top 3. Just Furia and Pain left. Who can stop the advance of the LLA?
Yeah, and at first it was, okay, well, yeah, IE looked good, but they beat Fluxo, okay? And then it was, wow, IE looked really good, but they beat Loud. Now it's IE looked good, and they beat VKS. This is a team that we talked about, like, should be a strong team, should give up a big performance, and to 3-0 them, not just in like 3 close games, but 2 of these were complete just disassemblings of the Cade Stars. It looks really good for IE right now.
When are they going to start looking bad? Brad is my question, because as you say, they keep stepping up their opponents, and every time it's like you say, well yeah, but it's not Pain, it's not Fury, it's not this, it's not that, but they're so dominant. They absolutely steamrolled Loud and VKS. They beat VKS even harder than Loud. They didn't even give a game over. And you know, Pain and Fury are very, very good, but Isrus Estral, they're showing great strategy, they're showing variety, they're showing resilience, they're showing good tempo when they need it. We're running out of problems with this team, to be honest.
Yeah, and their test is going to come in the next round. Tomorrow's matchup, that best of 5, should be just real spicy. I mean, that is the top 2 teams definitively going against each other. And I think we're going to see, depending on how that series plays out, we'll probably know how well it stands for IE to come in. If that series tomorrow, it goes to 5 because both teams, you know, they look real good and they're just really back and forth and it's lots of high strategy plays, then IE is going to be in trouble in the following weeks. If Furia or Pain come out and 3-0 the other and they just look really weak, I think there's a really solid shot IE would just, okay, well, these guys, we know where their weaknesses are. We're going to roll them over too.
Yeah, it's not just going to be a simple case of Pain versus Furia and then the assumed rematch in 2 weeks' time. You know, where whoever loses goes to losers bracket, quickly dispatches the 3rd place, and then comes back to run it back. I don't think that's going to be the case. IE look like a very real threat for either team who gets sent down. Both Furia and Pain have shown their weaknesses. They've shown their cracks of their own in this split. And IE just keep getting better and better and better. Snaker and Ackerman no longer a dead weight in the bot lane. Ackerman in that game 3 was legendary on the Nautilus. Like, Snaker was looking great on the Senna. This is why people are denying the pick from him. And Miryu, man, just they have really found a way to harness Miryu in the best possible way. They're enabling him to go absolutely crazy on all of his opponents. He is looking unstoppable.
That fight around Dragon where we're like, oh man, this is going to be like a real flip. We're going to go crazy. And then in comes Miryu over the wall, just destroys Desamas. Torn asunder. It was really something. That guy has, I don't know if he is necessarily like, because we talked about all of IE seems to have really gelled. But in terms of like the big steps up, Miryu was always, we talked about him as a solid mid laner. He's pretty good, but he has stepped up into maybe the best mid laner in the league right and now, that is something really to play around. I have high hopes. If you are an LLA fan, keep your eyes peeled because this IE team is something.
Yeah, Lizar is popping off in the chat all day and with good reason. He is eating good right now as the biggest LLA stan that we have in the regular chatters. And why not? Yeah, Miryu, absolutely. There's been times when I questioned his judgment, when I wondered if he's always been very aggressive, very mechanical, but he seemed to get himself into more bad situations than good ones. But now, he's picking his moments very, very well, and whatever IE are now doing in that laning phase is enabling him to have this little kind of window of safety to just take the honorable 1v1 and completely dominate his opponent today in Kissy without anyone being able to stop him. Even when people try to sneak in and punish him, he just takes 1 kill and walks away. Like, he'll take the 1v2 if you offer it to him. It has been such a great day for him. Absolutely the MVP on the day. I don't think there's a real question about that, but the rest of IE really gelling. The weaknesses, as we say, are falling away. The strengths are being amplified, and they are becoming a very, very real threat. The split won LTA South first place, and they're looking like they're making a very solid run for split 2 as well at this rate.
Yeah, they've got a test coming up because you're gonna see. I don't think Furia or Pain are particularly good matchups. I don't think they're good matchups for anybody, but they're not particularly good matchups for IE. You know, you're gonna have either Gigo or Wiser in that top side. Who, let's be real, Robo has been playing well. Some of the best League of Legends we've seen him playing coming into the series with IE, and then Summit just walked through him. And now Bull didn't get quite just steamrolled, but he just really didn't have enough impact where Summit was able to kind of be all over the map. I don't think you're going to have that same, one-sided matchup in the top side. The one thing is, I think, yeah, you're going to have to continue to play around your mid jungle, which has been really the shining spot for IE.
Yeah.
And whatever the result is, it kind of, like I said, it comes down to tomorrow's series. I think this top 3 is going to be so damn exciting. It's going to be so, we're about to have 3 straight series that should just be fantastic.
Yeah, it is going to be a banger. You do not want to miss it. Tomorrow, we'll be back same time, same place for Pain versus Furia. You absolutely don't want to miss that. And the week after that is finals weekend. It's semifinals and then finals matchup on the 14th and 15th. So we are very close to the conclusion of Split 2. I can feel that my voice is starting to go. So it is time to wrap this show up. We are going to send it back to an intermission screen, and we'll see if we can probably truck the raid over to LTA North as usual. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for sticking with us. Apologies for the very brief outage in the middle. And we will hopefully see you all back here tomorrow for Pain versus Furia.